Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Civil Law. For today's story, we go through the report of the Committee of Ethics of the House of Representatives in the matter of allegations relating to then Representative Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, as I'm sure many of you are aware, resigned on the expectation of becoming the next Attorney General. And then, there were a lot of reports relating to him, and then he dropped out, and he's no longer going to be the new Attorney General. And nor does he have a seat. Although hypothetically, of course, he could run for his own seat in a special election. There's nothing stopping him from running, of course. So maybe he'll get his old job back. Who can say? But what we can say for the moment is that the Committee on Ethics has decided to release the report relating to Matt Gaetz. Not the first time, incidentally, not the first time that one of the houses has released a report on a former member. So it is not unprecedented, although it is a bit unusual, but not unprecedented. So anyways, we're going to read this report, and then we will read or at least skim through some of the appendices. Probably not all of them, because there are a lot of them, but we'll skim through some of them. All right, so anyways, we're going to do that. Sitting on the Committee of Ethics, incidentally, in case anyone cares, are Michael Guest of Mississippi, David Joyce of Ohio, John Rutherford of Florida, Andrew Garabano of New York, Michelle Fischbach of Minnesota, Susan Wild of Pennsylvania, Veronica Escobar of Texas, Mark Disalonner of California, Deborah Ross of North Carolina, and Glenn Ivey of Maryland. Exciting. From the Honorable Kevin McClumber, the acting clerk, or to the Honorable Mr. McClumber, rather. Pursuant to Clause 3A2 and 3B of Rule 11 of the Rules of the House, I hereby transmit the attached report with dissenting reviews. Sincerely, Michael Guest, the chairman of the committee. Okay. In accordance with House Rule 11, Clause 3A2 and 3B, the Committee on Ethics hereby submits the following report to the House, including views of the chairman, Mr. Guest, on behalf of dissenting committee members. On April the 9th of 2021, the committee, incidentally, by the way, not that it needs to be said, but I'll just, clarify this. Of course, this is not a legal proceeding. This is a political proceeding. So there's no particular burden of proof because it's the House. And the House has the absolute right to discipline its members. It's in the Constitution. They have the absolute right to set out rules for themselves, and they have the absolute right to discipline their members. And there's no particular burden of proof. There's not really precedent when it comes to the legislative branch. There's just history. There's things that have happened before. But the rules are made up and the points don't matter. That isn't to say that isn't true. That's just simply to say that there's no particular burden of proof. So normally, like if we were in a criminal court, I'd be talking about proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And you might ask me, well, what is that? And I would say, well, on a numerical scale, it's something like 95 to 99%, right? That might be proof beyond a reasonable doubt, 95 to 99%. And you might ask me, well, what is preponderance of the evidence? I'm like, oh, I know that one. That one's 51%. That one I've got. And you might ask me a question like, oh, what is probable cause? And I might say, it's something like 10, 20%. And so you might ask me, what is the numerical percentage equivalent? Like, what is the percentage equivalent of this report? And I just go, I don't know. Because the rules are made up and the points don't matter. Because it's political. It isn't to say it isn't true. It's to say it's not legal. And in terms of being a legal process, in terms of being the legal branch, it's political. Anyways, pressing on. On April the 9th of 2021, the committee announced it was investigating a series of widely reported allegations relating to Matt Gaetz. At the request of the Department of Justice, the committee deferred its review to the 117th Congress. After it was organizing for the 118th Congress, the committee reauthorized its investigations into allegations involving then Representative Gaetz. Specifically, the committee undertook a review of allegations that Representative Gaetz may have engaged in sexual misconduct and or illicit drug use, shared inappropriate images or videos on the House floor, which incidentally, by the way, due to the speech and debate clause, are immune from any criminal prosecution. Just as a little aside, again, when it comes to the House disciplining their own, they can do whatever they want. But the speech and debate clause makes clear that if you do it on the floor of the House, that's as far as it goes. You could literally share classified material on the floor of the House and you still couldn't be prosecuted because speech and debate clause, it's a pretty amazing thing. But anyways, he may have shared inappropriate videos on the floor, which is better than, having sex on the floor, which is, it's been done before. Let's press on. Or at least in the committee room. Misused state identification records, converted campaign funds to personal use, and or accepted a bribe, improper gratuity, or impermissible gift. I'm sure the first time that's ever happened in Congress, lol. In June 2024, following extensive fact-finding, the committee determined to continue its review of the allegations of sexual misconduct, illicit drug use, and acceptance of impermissible gifts, and expand its review to include allegations that Representative Gaetz may have dispensed special privileges and favors to individuals with whom he had a personal relationship and obstructed governmental investigation into his conduct. At that time, the committee determined that no further action on the allegations relating to this should happen. So the House committee previously determined it wasn't going to do anything about it. That was a previous determination. We're not going to do anything about it. Fine. On November the 14th of 2024, Representative Gaetz resigned from the House after the president announced his intention to nominate him for the position of United States Attorney General. As a result of the resignation, the committee lost jurisdiction to continue its investigation. Representative Gaetz subsequently withdrew from consideration for the position. At this time, however, he has not announced any intent to seek higher office or return from Congress, which of course he remains free to do. He could run in his own special election. The committee has typically not released its findings after losing jurisdiction in this matter. However, there are a few prior instances where the committee, or for that matter, more strictly a committee of either the House or Senate, has determined that it was in the public interest to release its findings even after a member's resignation from Congress. The committee does not do so lightly, I'm sure, even though it previously voted not to release the report, but it's going to do it now. Yeah. Jillian says speech and debate clause would not make showing naked videos to people against their will immune from prosecution. Yes, it literally would. Yes, it absolutely would. That is the magic of the speech and debate clause. When it says that speech and debate shall not be questioned in any other place, it literally means that. Yes, you could show naked photos. You could show child pizza photos on the floor of the House, and they couldn't prosecute you for that. Now, your otherwise possession of the photos, maybe, we'll get to that, but the actual showing, including of the CP photos on the floor of the House, that's immune, baby. That's immune, baby. There are no limits. It's great. Anyways, pressing on. In some, the committee found substantial evidence of the following. From at least 2017 to 2022, Representative Gaetz regularly paid women for engaging in sexual activity with him. In 2017, Representative Gaetz sexually engaged in activity with a 17-year-old, which, depending on what state it is, may be legal. The age of consent is below 18 in several states. During the period in 2017 to 2019, Representative Gaetz used, and even if underage, about half the states are like strict liability. So if you have sex with someone underage, you're just guilty. But about half the states are like there are affirmative defenses. So if you believe that they're of age, that's affirmative defense in some states. So again, you'd have to double check your state reference on that one because it can get complicated. Pressing on. During the period of 2017 to 2019, Representative Gaetz used or possessed illegal drugs, including cocaine and ecstasy, on multiple occasions. Representative Gaetz accepted gifts, including transportation and lodging, in connection with the 2018 trips to the Bahamas in excess of permissible amounts. It could be just me, but I feel like that allegation just doesn't really belong here. I mean, he accepted a gift of a trip that was in excess of the reporting amounts. I'm not saying it's not an ethics violation. I'm just saying I'm not quite sure it belongs in the same breath as sex with the under 17-year-old, and he might have been paying people for sex. Also, he might have accepted a trip to the Bahamas. It just feels like a bit of a non sequitur to me. In 2018, Representative Gaetz arranged for his chief of staff to assist a woman with whom he engaged in sexual activity in obtaining a passport, falsely indicating to the United States Department of State that she was a constituent. Okay. Sure. Representative Gaetz knowingly and willfully sought to impede and obstruct the committee's investigation on conduct. Representative Gaetz has acted in a manner that reflects discreditably upon the House. Based on the above reports, the committee has concluded there's substantial evidence, whatever that means, that Representative Gaetz violated the House rules, state and federal laws, and other standards of conduct prohibiting prostitution, statutory rape, illicit drug use, acceptance of impermissible gifts, the provision of special favors and privileges, and obstruction of Congress. The committee did not find sufficient evidence to conclude that Representative Gaetz violated federal sex trafficking, which would mostly be the Mann Act. When you transport a minor across state lines for the purpose of engaging in sex, or transport a person across state lines through fraud, deceit, or other trickery, the Mann Act is going to make you its bitch. Accordingly, Representative Gaetz did cause the transportation of women across state lines for the purpose of commercial sex. The committee did not find any of the women were under 18, nor did the committee find evidence to conclude there was force, fraud, or coercion. So, yeah, there you go on that. Representative Gaetz was uncooperative throughout the committee's review. He provided minimal documentation in response to the committee's requests. He also did not agree to a voluntary interview. Why would you? On July the 11th of 2024, the committee issued a subpoena to Representative Gaetz for his testimony. He did not appear despite having received notice and date at the time. The committee then sent Representative Gaetz a series of written questions, to which he issued a public response that ignored most of the direct questions about his misconduct and mischaracterized the committee's investigation and participation up to that point. Despite Representative Gaetz's claims to the contrary, the committee's singular mission is to protect the integrity of the House. I'll let you guys debate whether or not that's true. When faced with serious public allegations against a member, the committee will often investigate, and when such allegations are false, the committee has shared a goal with the respondent of disproving those allegations. While the committee considered whether to establish an investigative subcommittee to sanctions against Gaetz, the committee ultimately determined it would not risk further victimization of the women involved. How nice for them. Most of the women with whom the committee spoke also gave statements to the DOJ and urged the committee to rely on those statements in lieu of requiring them to relive their experience. Fair enough. They are particularly concerned with providing additional testimony about a sitting congressman in light of DOJ's lack of action on the prior testimony. Well, the DOJ at least does have standards because they, like to prosecute criminal cases, and the DOJ tends not to fuck around. It's why the DOJ has a 99% conviction rate when you add in plea deals. The DOJ doesn't mess around. They tend to be small c conservative in bringing criminal charges. If the DOJ is bringing criminal charges against you, you're having a bad day. So the DOJ tends to, be a little bit more reserved as a general rule. There are exceptions, of course, but as a general rule. Okay. The DOJ refused to provide the relevant statements and other significant evidence to the committee. DOJ cited internal policies about protecting uncharged subjects like Gaetz, general concerns about how DOJ cooperation with the committee may deter victims in other matters, and various and opposite policies relating to congressional oversight of the DOJ itself. Well, fair enough. DOJ's internal deferral requests and subsequent lack of cooperation caused significant delay in the investigation. Those delays were compounded by Representative Gaetz' obstructive efforts. The committee has determined its findings must be released without further impediment. I'm feeling the rah-rah. Accordingly, on December 10th of 2024, the committee voted whether to release this report. Although several members did not support the release, a majority of members voted in favor of the release. Fine. On April the 9th of 2021, the committee publicly announced it was investigating allegations relating to Representative Gaetz, including whether he may have engaged in sexual misconduct and/or illicit drug use, shared inappropriate images on or videos on the House floor, misused state identification records, converted campaign funds, and/or accepted a bribe, improper gratuity, or impermissible gift. Shortly thereafter, the DOJ requested the committee defer all investigation of Representative Gaetz. The committee did so, which they don't have to do because, of course, they are a separate branch of government. So the DOJ doesn't have to play nice with the House, and the House doesn't have to play nice with the DOJ, which is a little bit ironic because the DOJ asked the committee to defer, and they did. And then when the committee said, can we have DOJ records? The DOJ was all like, no. So we're not in a share and share alike kind of mood over there, which is interesting. In February of 2023, after the committee asked DOJ for an update on its deferral request, public reports indicated that the DOJ had informed Representative Gaetz and mobile witnesses that the congressman would not be charged in connection with the investigation. In February 2023, they made a determination that nothing should happen. Shortly, which once again, by the way, is even more rich because, well, I guess it depends on your point of view because, again, the points are made up and the rules don't matter. So what is enough evidence to charge Gaetz? I mean, by the House? I don't know. What does the House think is enough evidence to charge Gaetz? Right? The rules are made up and the points don't matter. What do they think is enough evidence? It's a great political system, man. But the fact that they, even though they make up their own rules, didn't think they could meet the burden of their own rules is kind of rich. We couldn't meet the standards that we ourselves create for ourselves and also can make up at any time. So that's fun. Even in a kangaroo court, we couldn't make it. Shortly thereafter, the DOJ informed the committee that would no longer be requiring a deferral, or requesting it rather. The chairman and ranking member reauthorized this matter in May of 2023 in accordance with the rules. On June 18th of 2024, the committee announced the scope of the inquiry would focus on allegations of sexual misconduct, illicit drug use, acceptance of improper gifts, dispensation of special privileges and favors with whom he had a personal relationship, and obstruction of government relationships. At the time, the committee also stated it would not continue to investigate allegations of sharing inappropriate images or videos on the House floor, misusing state identification records, converting campaign funds to personal use, and accepting a bribe or improper gratuity. The chairman and ranking member sent out 9 requests for information and 6 Freedom of Information Act requests. The committee, it's funny that Congress has to use the Freedom of Information Act. I just think that's hilarious. It's because that's the mechanism they have. It's like, we can't get it from the executive. We're going to use the Freedom of Information Act. The same law that anyone else could use. I just find that rich. The committee also authorized 29 subpoenas for documents and testimony, reviewed nearly 14,000 documents, and contacted more than 24 witnesses. The committee also received sworn written responses from an associate of Representative Gaetz, Joel Greenberg, as discussed below. However, the committee has determined that due to credibility issues, it would not rely exclusively on information provided by Greenberg in making any findings. Nice. Shortly after DOJ withdrew its deferral request and the committee reauthorized its review, the committee sent DOJ a request for information. After 3 months without a response despite repeated follow-up, the committee submitted a FOIA request to several relevant DOJ offices, which to date have not been processed. The committee continued to reach out to DOJ throughout 2023, having still not received a substantive response. On January 12th of 2024, the committee received its first response from DOJ. At that time, DOJ provided no substantive response or explanation for delay. Instead, the DOJ simply stated it does not provide non-public information about law enforcement investigations that do not result in charges. The policy, however, is inconsistent with the DOJ's historical conduct with respect to the committee. Again, kind of mildly hilarious. The DOJ said to the House, hey, would you mind putting your thing on hold? The DOJ has no power over the House. They're a separate branch of government. They have no power over the House. But the House is like, okay, DOJ, we're willing to play nice. We will defer to you. And then at some point, the DOJ is like, okay, we don't need you to defer to us anymore. And then the House is like, hey, you know how we did you a favor by deferring? You know how we did you a favor? Yeah. Could you do us a favor by giving us some information? No. Yeah, that's probably not conducive to further cooperative relationships. Just saying. Thereafter, the committee determined to issue the subpoena to DOJ to obtain records relating to the investigation. They didn't comply with the subpoena. Well, they don't have to, for a very, very practical reason. Why doesn't the DOJ have to obey a subpoena by Congress? Let me think about it. All right, what happens if you disobey a subpoena? Well, that's contempt. Who prosecutes contempt? Oh, that's right. It's the DOJ. Da-da-da-da-da-da. So the DOJ didn't comply with the subpoena because, why would we? But suggested it remain committed to good faith engagement with the committee, which means whatever DOJ wants to mean. In the spirit of cooperation, the committee provided a list of responsive documents seeking out particular demands from the subpoena. Among the particularized demands was a request for any exculpatory evidence relating to Gaetz. On March the 13th, 2024, the committee members met with the Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legislative Affairs and the Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division of DOJ. The DOJ officials again cite no legal basis for failing to comply. Let me help you out. With the legal basis for the failure to comply. The DOJ is not going to cooperate with you because the failure to cooperate is a crime that would be investigated by the DOJ. So, yeah, that would be our legal basis. The DOJ subsequently requested additional context for the committee's demands, which the committee provided. After further attempts at meaningful accommodation of the DOJ's concerns, the DOJ ultimately provided publicly reported information about the testimony of a deceased individual. We'll give you something that's already public. That's nice. To date, DOJ has provided no meaningful evidence or information to the committee or cite any lawful basis for failure to reply. The committee hopes to engage with the DOJ on broader issues raised by the failure of the committee's unique mandate. Good luck with that. As the committee has told the DOJ, the committee and the DOJ should be partners in their shared mission of upholding the integrity of governmental institutions. The DOJ, I'm sure, is thrilled by this request for cooperation. The committee initially made a narrowly tailored request for information to Representative Gaetz, seeking information limited to allegations that would not be within the DOJ's jurisdiction, the alleged acceptance of an improper gift, and sharing of nude images and videos on the House floor. The request also invited Representative Gaetz to provide additional information relevant to any allegations. Representative Gaetz sought numerous extensions and complained about the burden of the request. Representative Gaetz only provided only 3 pages of information in response to requests. Fair enough, ma'am. On May the 20th and 24th, the committee requested Representative Gaetz inform the committee whether he would agree to participate in a voluntary interview and provide him a list of allegations so he can make a response or provide any information regarding allegations. Thank you, by the way, Alan Parker, for the 20 gift memberships, and thank you very much, Fiery Red Podcast, for being a member for 9 months. Your super chats and supports are appreciated. On May the 24th of 2024, Representative Gaetz provided brief written denials of the allegations and demanded the committee address leaks prior to providing any oral testimony to the committee. On June 28th of 2024, the committee requested Representative Gaetz provide the committee with all records previously produced to DOJ, as well as dates of availability for interview by July the 8th. At this time, the committee made an explicit request for any exonerating information. The committee also informed Representative Gaetz that it could not permit further delays. Representative Gaetz did not produce the requested documents or dates of availability. And on July the 10th, he asked for an extension through August recess to produce documents he deemed appropriate. Representative Gaetz did not provide these documents despite multiple extensions. The committee noted to Representative Gaetz that an interview would be an opportunity to respond to allegations against you and relevant questions arising out of the review. However, he declined to voluntarily participate, again making demands of the committee instead. On July the 11th, the committee issued a subpoena for Representative Gaetz' testimony. The subpoena was served electronically to Representative Gaetz and his chief of staff, who communicated with the committee on behalf of the congressman throughout the investigation. Representative Gaetz did not appear to testify pursuant to the committee's subpoena. Representative Gaetz did not provide a legal basis for failure to appear, but informed the committee that upon information and belief, the House will not take action to enforce the subpoena, which I suppose is a legal basis, I suppose in some sense, right? If I don't believe you're going to try to enforce the subpoena, then the subpoena is optional, right? So, I mean, that kind of is a legal basis. The committee informed Representative Gaetz that following its failure to comply and to provide a fulsome response to requests for information, the committee would rely on the record available to make it in making findings. Representative Gaetz responded by stating that he prioritized providing evidence that most clearly and directly proves his innocence, and stated he welcomed written questions. The committee subsequently sent a set of written questions. Representative Gaetz issued a response publicly, which did not answer most of the questions and asserted he would no longer voluntarily participate. Thank you, Lynn Britton, for being a member for 16 months. Your support is appreciated. Has Congress ever actually ejected a member? Yes, it happens. And I hope it happened most recently with, what's his name? It happened like last year with expelling the member. What was his name? Douchebag. I can't remember his name. Santos. That would be the asshole. Thank you. Yeah, Santos. Yes. Members of the Congress do get expelled. It happened like last year. Santos got expelled. So yes, it happens. He's getting sentenced next month. He's going to jail for a while. All right, where were we? On November the 14th, Representative Gaetz submitted his resignation to the House. DOJ brought no charges? Dude, you haven't been paying attention. Or, I mean, like, with Gaetz, that DOJ brought no charges? I mean, fair enough. I mean, but the DOJ is much more conservative. I'm sorry. I thought you initially had said Santos, and I misread it. That was my fault. Yeah, they definitely brought charges against Santos. Santos is going to prison. As for Gaetz, yeah, they didn't bring charges, but the DOJ tends to be fairly small c conservative. So they tend not to bring charges unless they have you 8 different ways. They really don't like to lose. They really want to nail you to the wall. On November the 14th in 2024, Representative Gaetz submitted his resignation. On December 10th, while several members of the committee ejected, majority members voted to release the report. Federal laws that are applicable. Section 1591 of Title 18 of the United States Codes prohibits trafficking, including recruiting, enticing, or transporting a minor for commercial sex, prostitution, while knowing or in reckless disregard of the fact the victim is a minor. Section 1591 also prohibits trafficking an adult for commercial sex using force, threats of force, fraud, or coercion. The Mann Act, which is a very glorious law that gets a lot of people, 18 U.S.C. 2421, prohibits knowing transportation of individuals through interstate or foreign commerce to engage in prostitution or other illegal sexual activity. Section 2423 specifically prohibits the transportation of minors with intent to engage in commercial sex or illegal sexual activity. However, if a defendant establishes that they reasonably believe the individual with whom they engaged in commercial sex was at least 18 years old, defendant may avoid criminal liability. This, incidentally, would be true in about half the states with statutory rape laws. Half the states are like, we don't care, they're a minor. Half the states are like, if you believe they're under 18, or if you believe they're over 18 and you had a reason to believe it, that's an affirmative defense. So that would be valid in many states too. Sections 2421 and 2422 are not limited to transportation of minors, but the criminal division of DOJ stated it does not prosecute these statutes in every case where they're violated, but only where there's evidence of a victim of severe forms of trafficking. So as long as it's a little light prostitution, the DOJ doesn't care. As long as it's a little bit of light, friendly prostitution, the DOJ is not out to ruin your day. How nice. Federal law also prohibits obstruction of Congress, specifically under 18 U.S.C. 1505. It's either a crime either corruptly or through threats to influence, obstruct, or impede the due process in exercise of the proper inquiry of the House. Yeah, but no one cares. Federal law also prohibits tampering with witnesses in a congressional proceeding. Pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 1512, it's a crime to knowingly intimidate, threaten, or corruptly persuade or attempt to do so, or engage in misleading conduct towards an individual with intent to influence, delay, or prevent their testimony, or cause someone to withhold or alter evidence. The witness tampering statute also prohibits the lesser offense of intentionally harassing a witness in order to sway the witness. False statements to Congress are also prohibited pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 1001, which also prohibits lying to the FBI. Incidentally, that's like a 10-year felony, so don't do that. Under Florida's statutory rape law, it's a felony for a person 24 years of age or older to engage in sexual activity with a 16 or 17-year-old. Well, that's disappointing. That means that you can't simultaneously be a member of the House and engage in sex with a 16 or 17-year-old. Because to be a member of the House, you have to be at least 25. So, yeah. A person charged with this offense may not claim ignorance or misrepresentation. So Florida is not one of those states in which I thought they were 18 is an affirmative defense. Okay. It's also a criminal offense under Florida state law to solicit, induce, entice, or procure another to commit prostitution or purchase the services of any person engaged in prostitution, or to aid and abet such actions. Florida defines prostitution as giving or receiving of the body for sexual activity for hire, but excludes sexual activity between spouses. So that's nice. That's a nice thing to know. So in Florida, although it's generally illegal to pay someone for sex, you can pay for it if it's your wife. So if your wife isn't sleeping with you and you're like, how about I give you $1,000? And she's like, okay, in Florida, that's legal. The more you know, the more you know. We're all learning all kinds of fun, exciting things. In Florida, unauthorized possession of controlled substances is also a criminal offense. Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 substances are deemed by Florida laws having highly potential for abuse. Cocaine and MDMA are controlled substances. Specifically, they're both Schedule 2, I believe. So I'm not sure why we're referring to Schedule 1. I believe MDMA is Schedule 2. I think. I have to double check. All right. Maybe it's Schedule 1. I have to double check. Anyways, pressing on. Pursuant to 5 U.S.C. 7353 and House Rule 25, Clause 5, the gift rule, members of Congress are subject to broad limitations on solicitation and acceptance of gifts. Under the gift rules, members may not knowingly accept any gifts except as provided in the rule. As the ethics manual explains, gifts include gratuities, favors, discounts, entertainment, hospitality, loans, forbearance, service, training, travel expenses, in-kind contributions, advance payments, and reimbursements after the fact. MDMA is Schedule 1. Thank you for the correction. The general provision of the gift rule allows members to accept a gift valued at less than $50 so long as the source of the gift is not a registered lobbyist, foreign agent, or a private entity that retains or employs the individual. So $50 or less are fine. A gift received through a personal friendship where the market value is more than $250 requires formal approval from the committee. With respect to a trip, the value is viewed as a whole and thus includes transportation, lodging, and meal expenses paid for by the gift giver. Okay. Certain considerations must be made in determining whether to accept a gift of over $250, such as the history of personal friendship, including any previous exchange of gifts, whether the gift giver personally paid for the gift or sought a tax deduction or business reimbursement for the gift, whether the gift giver gave similar gifts to other members, officers, or employees of the House. In similar, members are required to report the receipt of certain gifts from non-relatives when the aggregate value exceeds the minimal value. The minimal value is $480, excluding any gifts valued under $192. Who can keep up with this? Who can keep up with these rules? Okay, so if it's more than $250, it's this, but if it's more than $480, but it doesn't include gifts that are less than $192. Who comes up with these numbers? There's also an exemption for personal gifts of personal hospitality, for which there's no value limit and no reporting requirement. The personal hospitality exception, however, is limited. It only applies to stays and meals in someone's personally owned home and does not include air travel to get to that location or stays at a property that's rented out to others. What if I live on my plane, though, you bigots? House Rule 23, Clause 15 governs the payment for use of non-commercial aircraft by House members. Members may use personal funds for use of an aircraft supplied by an individual on the basis of personal friendship. I need friends like these. Members may only accept a flight on a non-commercial aircraft without reimbursement under limited circumstances, as under the gift rule. As a general member, the personal friendship exception can only apply if the aircraft is owned by the member's personal friend. The use of the aircraft is for personal members, and the member receives written approval from the committee where the value is in excess of $250. Incidentally, if it's non-commercial, how do you determine the value? That's actually a reasonable question. How do you determine the value if it's non-commercial? Is it based on like the pricing equivalent of it? How do you price that? I guess you try to look to compare. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Section 5341 of Title II of United States Code established the members' representative allowance, provides its purpose to support the conduct of the House. Thank you, Marie Z, for the 10 gift memberships. We do appreciate everyone who was a member and hits that beautiful, beautiful join button. Thank you very much. The ethics manual notes, however, that assistance to non-constituents are not entirely prohibited under the statute and explains, in some instances, working for non-constituents on matters that are similar to those facing constituents may enable the matter to better serve his district. Nonetheless, members should not devote official resources to casework for individuals who live outside their district. What the hell? Like, heaven forbid a member of Congress help a citizen who isn't a member of their district. Heaven forbid, right? I mean, the Code of Ethics of Government Service sets forth standards of conduct for all government employees. Paragraph 2 of the code provides that those in government service should uphold the Constitution, laws, and legal regulations of the United States and of all governments therein and never be a party to their evasion. How nice. Paragraph 5 states that they should never discriminate unfairly by dispensing of special favors or privileges to anyone, whether for remuneration or not. All public servants are charged under the code with upholding the principles articulated, ever conscious the public office is a public trust. Rule 23, Clause 1 states that a member of the House shall behave at all times in a manner that shall reflect credibility of the House. Rule 23, Clause 2 states that members shall adhere to the spirit and letter of the rules of the House. All right, let's get into the more salacious details. All right. However, since I am not a member of Congress, I can accept gifts in any amount. So if you would kindly, hit that subscribe button, that would be appreciated. If you haven't liked the video already, if you could hit like, it does help with the recommendation algorithm, incidentally. I think if you get more than like 400 likes or something, it helps the video get promoted more. So that would be nice. If you could hit the like button, it's free. If you wouldn't mind doing that'd be nice. If you could hit that like button. And if you wouldn't mind, you could hit the join button. It's only 99 cents a month to support the channel. It's very, very cheap. It's literally the least YouTube will let me charge you. You get behind the scenes content and some emojis, and you get your name in green, and you get a cool little icon by your name. It's neat. Plus you support the channel. All right, let's get into the more salacious allegations. This is what you guys came for. On March the 30th of 2021, the New York Times reported that Representative Gaetz was under investigation by the DOJ for possible violations of sex trafficking laws. The investigation reportedly related to allegations that Representative Gaetz had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old and paid for her to travel with him. On April the 1st of 2021, additional reporting indicated the federal investigation including allegations involving cash payments, the use of illegal substances, the recruitment of women online for sex, and the use of campaign funds to pay for travel for women. The DOJ investigation was part of an ongoing inquiry involving a former county tax collector in Florida named Joel Greenberg, who has been sentenced to 11 years in prison in 2022. The committee record shows that shortly after he was sworn to Congress in 2017, Representative Gaetz became friends with Mr. Greenberg, who had also recently taken office as the Seminole County tax collector. Thank you very much, JPC, for the $20. Merry Christmas, Kurt. Merry Christmas to you as well. And thank you very much, Someone Bloody Random, for being a member for 9 months. We do appreciate both of your support. According to Mr. Greenberg, the two met at the house of Christopher Dorworth, a Florida lobbyist. Mr. Greenberg and Representative Gaetz frequently attended. Thank you very much, JPC, for being a member for 13 months. Thank you, Welez, one, for becoming an uncivilian. We do appreciate you hitting that beautiful, beautiful join button and spending 99 cents a month. We do appreciate it. Let's see. Mr. Greenberg and Representative Gaetz frequently attended parties and other gatherings with young women in attendance. Many of those women were initially contacted by Mr. Greenberg via the site seekingarrangement.com, now seeking.com. And Mr. Greenberg subsequently introduced the women to Representative Gaetz. Seekingarrangement.com advertised itself as a sugar dating website that primarily connected older men and younger women seeking a mutually beneficial relationship. The website was generally understood by many of the women involved by the committee to involve, at a minimum, exchange of companionship for money. There have been prosecutions against individuals for sex trafficking that originated with contacts made through seekingarrangement.com or similar websites. And some have called for the website to be shut down for its facilitation of prostitutions. Platforms such as seekingarrangement.com are known to make it easier for traffickers to exploit victims and connect with buyers. The committee did not receive any evidence that Representative Gaetz had his own account on seekingarrangement.com. Mr. Greenberg indicated he frequently showed the site to Representative Gaetz, and he provided his login credentials to Representative Gaetz. According to Mr. Greenberg, he and Representative Gaetz would split the cost of drugs, hotels, and girls. How nice. Share and share alike, For example, the committee reviewed evidence that such activity occurred in July 2017. Specifically, evidence showed that Representative Gaetz, Mr. Greenberg, and others gathered at a rental property located in the Bricknell neighborhood of Miami for a weekend beginning on July the 7th of 2017. Representative Gaetz and Mr. Greenberg also spent time in Fort Lauderdale during their Miami stay, during which time Representative Gaetz withdrew at least $1,200 in cash from 3 single different ATMs. I'm not sure what that necessarily means, but okay. On July, I suppose the implication is that he was paying them in cash for sex, but I mean, whatever. On June the 22nd, 2017, Representative Gaetz paid $6,308 for the rental booking. On July the 9th of 2017, Mr. Greenberg paid Representative Gaetz $1,600 by check. Mr. Greenberg stated the check was reimbursement for a share of the rental. Mr. Greenberg also noted they met up with another individual for dinner that weekend and shared a photo of Representative Gaetz, himself, and the other individual on social media on July the 8th of 2017. The committee received evidence confirming that Representative Gaetz at times personally made payments to women who attended parties with him and Mr. Greenberg using various peer-to-peer electronic payment services as well as cash and checks. Incidentally, probably not as much with the checks, by the way. You don't want to make it like super duper easy. I mean, really don't pay for prostitution with check. That just sounds like a bad plan. Also, what prostitute takes a check? I don't know, but apparently these are things that are happening. The committee's record also indicates that Mr. Greenberg sometimes paid women for having sex with Representative Gaetz and sometimes was reimbursed by Gaetz. Witnesses indicated there were many times when a lump sum would be sent to one woman who would then distribute the money evenly among others who attended the parties. I guess unless you're at the Bunny Ranch in Nevada, then I guess you could pay by check, although I'm not clear whether the Bunny Ranch will accept a check. I'm willing to bet no. If I were a betting man, probably not big on checks. So, yeah. Witnesses indicated there were many times when a lump sum would be sent to one woman who would then distribute the money among others who attended the party. Likewise, in one instance, Representative Gaetz sent $400 to Greenberg with the note, "Hit up victim A." Mr. Greenberg then sent two women payments totaling $400, including victim A. Apparently, this was through a Venmo account. This is Mr. Greenberg's Venmo account. Representative Gaetz' initial attempt to send the payment did not go through. In the attempt, the note stated, "Don't forget to hit up victim A. She was on me." Nice. This is just too funny. We accept check. We accept money order. We even accept Diners Club. We're the best prostitution outfit anywhere. So come on down to Old Prostitution Central. We accept... Probably, maybe they only take Amex. They only take Amex. That's how high tier they are. They only take Amex. If you don't have at least an Amex Gold card, keep walking. You can't afford our prostitutes. From 2017 through 2020, Representative Gaetz made tens of thousands of dollars in payments to women the committee designed were likely in connection with sexual activity and or drug use. Payments were made to these women using peer-to-peer platforms such as PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App. While Representative Gaetz had accounts in his name on each of these platforms, he also sometimes paid women through another person's PayPal account or through an account he held under a pseudonym account. Which apparently was Google. It seems. Representative Gaetz also paid some of the women by check or cash. Again, with the checks. Would you like to see one of the checks? Hold on. Here we go. Here's one of the checks. Lol. He didn't seem to put anything in the memo line. That's, okay. The following chart summarizes payments made by Gaetz to Mr. Greenberg and via women via peer-to-peer platforms and or checks. Woman 1, $63,836.58. Nice. Which is specified as former girlfriend. I don't know how they mean that. Do they mean like girlfriend, like I would mean the term girlfriend, or do they mean girlfriend experience? What do they mean by girlfriend? Woman 2, $4,000. Woman 2, $2,600. Woman 4, $6,100. Woman 5, $4,000. Woman 6, $5,200. Woman 7, $200. I guess she's not very good. She no repeat business for woman number 7. Only 1 star on the Yelp review. I had to put a bag over her head. Would not recommend. Woman 8, $600. Woman 9, $1,200. Woman 10, there's that $400. Woman 11, $500. Woman 12, $2,100. And Joel Greenberg, $3,900. Exciting. The committee's report indicates that Representative Gaetz was in a long-term relationship with Woman 1, and therefore some of the payments may be legitimate in nature. However, discussed below, if Woman 1 asserted her Fifth Amendment rights when asked whether payments to her from Representative Gaetz were for sexual activity and or drugs, or for her to pass on to other purposes. Hey, is this prostitution money? Well, I'm going to take the Fifth. No shit. Based on assertions combined with evidence and received from other sources, the committee found substantial reason to believe most of the payments were for such activity. The committee was not able to speak to every woman who received payments from Representative Gaetz that were suspected of being part of the illicit activity. Several women initially were responsive to the committee's outreach, but later told the committee they would not voluntarily participate. Other women were clear at first contact they feared retaliation or unwilling to voluntarily relive their interactions with Representative Gaetz. Due to the woman's reluctance to cooperate, as well as delay caused by DOJ's deferral requests and subsequent refusal to provide meaningful cooperation, the committee was unable to determine the full extent to which Representative Gaetz' payments to women were compensation for engaging in sexual activity with him. However, the record before the thank you $10 from Elena Stansby, or 10 pounds. 2 things I don't believe so far. He paid for ladies of the night with checks, and he gave the money to one to distribute. Fair. Yeah. However, the record before the committee provides substantial reason to believe that many of the payments in the chart were $4.99 from Bill Potter. Paying a hooker with a check. Been there, done that. Launched my TV fame, Mayor Jerry Springer. That is a very old reference, but very appreciated. Thank you. Maybe Matt Gaetz will become the new Jerry Springer. But it's Jerry, and Matt Gaetz. I don't know if that has the same ring to it, but there's potential in there. We can work on it. However, the record before the committee provides substantial reason to believe that many of the payments in the chart were made in connection with sexual activity and or illicit drug use. The committee was also not able to quantify the amount of cash payments Representative Gaetz made to women. That would be difficult. That's one of the beauties of cash. Or the amounts of payments that other individuals such as Greenberg made on behalf of Gaetz. That is one of the things that's nice about cash. It's kind of harder to trace it. It's much harder to trace cash. Representative Gaetz refused to answer questions about his relationship with the women involved. There was, however, evidence that he understood and shared many of the women's transactional views of their arrangement. In one text exchange viewed by the committee, Representative Gaetz balked at a woman's request that he send her money after he accused her of ditching him on the night when she was feeling tired, claiming she only gave him a drive-by. The woman asserted to Representative Gaetz that she was being treated differently than other women he was paying for sex. Well, maybe you should go to HR. You know, I'm just not being treated fairly in the workplace. These other women, these other hoes aren't being treated the same way as me. I am not being treated fairly in the workplace. This is a hostile work environment. What comprises a hostile work environment for a hoe? These are legal questions that I didn't know I had before today, but okay. What does OSHA have to say about hoes? I mean, it is legal in parts of Nevada. Are there special provisions in OSHA for prostitution? I need an OSHA expert. That's what I need right now. I need an OSHA expert to tell me whether or not there are any provisions in OSHA that are specifically designed to deal with legal prostitution. I bet you the answer is yes. What are those regulations? I'd like to know more. If the prostitutes try to unionize, we can get the Department of Labor involved. Yeah, I'm loving these. I'm loving these things as we speak, man. No pay, no lay. No pay, no lay. No pay, no lay. Ugh. The committee also obtained text messages in which Representative Gaetz' then girlfriend informed him some of the women who were typically paid for sex that guys like Representative Gaetz and Greenberg wanted me to share that they are little limited in their cash flow. Okay. Matt was like, if it can be more of a customer appreciation week. I'm a little tight on cash. Do we have a Bang 11 get the 12th one free plan over here? Wow, I love it. This is great. A few months later, she noted, by the way, Matt also mentioned he's going to be a bit generous because of the customer appreciation thing last time. Apparently, the women went for it. Another woman specifically recalled a conversation with Representative Gaetz about issues with Greenberg's following through with expected payments after Greenberg's encounters with her. Mr. Greenberg told the committee that Representative Gaetz was aware of the women they had sex with and Payne had met Greenberg through a sugar dating website. Layaway plans. Very good, Rainbow Zen Kitty. +1 channel point for you. Representative Gaetz did not appear to have negotiated specific payment amounts prior to engaging in sexual activity. That sounds like a bad plan. $9.99 from Randy King for personal favors. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it. Instead, the women had general expectations that they would receive some amount of money after sexual encounters. So this is the weirdest prostitution ever. We don't have a fixed amount before we engage in behavior. In 2017, using a pseudonym account, Representative Gaetz made women to women largely without a description of purpose. That would probably be a much better plan. After several months, he began using other payment accounts, including ones with his own name, using innocuous descriptions to indicate the purpose of the payments. Representative Gaetz did not provide any information regarding the tens of thousands of dollars he made in payments to over a dozen women despite being offered the opportunity to do so. Representative Gaetz was provided with a list of women with whom the committee found received payments with him beginning in 2017 and was asked to inform the committee of the purpose of these payments, as well as to inform the committee how he knew the individual and whether, if you engaged in any sexual activity with the individual, did she ever indicate to you that she expected payment for engaging in sexual activity with you? Rather than answer the question Representative Gaetz asserted incorrectly, you ask in part whether I've had sex with a list of adult women over the past 7 years. The lawful, consensual sexual activities of adults are not the business of Congress. Many of the women interviewed by the committee were clear that there was a general expectation of sex. One woman who was paid more than $5,000 by Representative Gaetz between 2018 and 2019 told the committee that 99% of the time Representative Gaetz and I were hanging out, there was sex involved. Nina Nesverona, for $5, said, OSHA doesn't have a specific provision for sex work, but could probably be covered on the General Duties Clause. Oh, I have no problem believing that many provisions of OSHA apply to prostitutes in general. I mean, to maintain a safe work environment and all the rest of it. I'm sure there are many provisions of OSHA that apply to legal prostitution, but you've got to have at least one rule specifically for the legal prostitutions. There's got to be a rule. There's got to be a rule or a commentary rule. There's got to be something specific. There's got to be something contemplating the prostitution than OSHA. You just know there has to be somewhere. It's a rule that's buried deep. Maybe it's not obvious. There's no heading, prostitution related businesses. It's a rule that's buried deep in a subpart somewhere. Text messages obtained by the committee show that Representative Gaetz would also ask women to bring drugs to their rendezvous, in some instances requesting marijuana cartridges and repaying the women directly, but in other cases requesting a full complement of party favors, vitamins, or rolls. Okay. Representative Gaetz sent one woman several $100s for marijuana cartridges. One woman stated that with respect to the 2018 Bahamas trip, myself and Representative Gaetz' then girlfriend brought drugs with us, and I do know that Matt supplied his then girlfriend with money. Well, I mean, supplying your girlfriend with money isn't exactly unusual. Another woman stated that she brought cocaine to at least one event with Representative Gaetz, and she witnessed him taking cocaine or ecstasy on at least 5 occasions. Mr. Greenberg told the committee that he would typically provide drugs such as ecstasy for events he attended, and Representative Gaetz would pay him back in cash. Several other women observed Representative Gaetz to be under the influence of drugs. Additionally, nearly every witness interviewed observed Representative Gaetz using marijuana. Well, heaven forbid, right? Any day that the federal government wants to reclassify marijuana would be fine by me. The DEA has been sitting on this for a little while now. Any day they want to reclassify marijuana would be fine. It does not belong in Schedule 1. The proposal was to reclassify it Schedule 3. Any day they want to actually do that would be fine. Selected interactions. I mean, it literally doesn't belong in Schedule 1. My objection to it is very technical, as many of you do. I consider myself very conservative. And one of the things conservatives tend to like is rules. We like rules and we like categories, and we like things that are in boxes, and we like things that are categorized and this thing belongs here and this thing belongs here and this thing belongs here. We like rules and boundaries and borders of all kinds. It's one of the things that kind of defines, one of the things that sort of typifies a conservative thinking. And I'm like, okay, so we have this box called Schedule 1. I was like, okay, what is the definition of Schedule 1? Well, for Schedule 1, it has to have, by definition, no possible medical use, and it must be like extremely dangerous and extremely addictive. And I'm like, well, marijuana does have medical use, so it can't be in the Schedule 1 box. Because for it to be in the Schedule 1 box, it can have no medical use, and that's ridiculous to say it has no medical use. So like whatever rule, it doesn't fit the rule. It doesn't fit the rule. So it doesn't belong in the Schedule 1 box. It just doesn't. Cocaine is Schedule 2. Heroin is Schedule 2. But marijuana is Schedule 1. Methamphetamine is Schedule 2. You can get a prescription for cocaine. You can get a prescription for methamphetamine. You can get a prescription for Adderall, which is basically speed. It's amphetamine. But you can't get a prescription, at least under federal rules, for marijuana. Based on the evidentiary record, the committee identified at least 20 occasions from the beginning of 2017 through the middle of 2020. They have medical weed prescripts, not as far as the federal government's concerned. No, they don't. That's the whole thing. That's the whole problem. That's the thing. That's exactly the issue. As far as the federal government's concerned, no, they don't. New York Renal MD says, lots to say on this topic, but there are career DEA agents with a whole career based on cannabis being Schedule 1. Cops create their own pseudoscience. Well, the DEA can suck my balls. The DEA can suck my balls. This reminds me of a conversation I once had with someone who was in DEA. It was funny. I was a member of a book club. I went to this book club meeting to try to learn to try to read more books. And I forget how we were in a conversation, but I said something like, well, I think, we should be able to go down to the corner, and we should be able to, go buy, marijuana, and we should go be able to buy, we should go be able to buy mushrooms. And this girl who's sitting next to me says, well, I'm DEA. Be careful with saying that. And I said, well, DEA, what I said was, I think we should be able to go down to the corner and buy marijuana and mushrooms. That is a statement of a preferred policy. That is my statement of what I think the law should be. So are you trying to suppress my First Amendment speech on what I think policy should be? She's like, no. I'm like, that's what I thought. Shut the fuck up. Based on the evidentiary record, the committee identified at least 20 occasions from the beginning of 2017 through the middle of 2020 when there was substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz met with women who were paid for sex and/or drugs. The committee also received testimony related to multiple additional events, trips, or parties where Representative Gaetz may have paid women for sex or drugs, although the committee could not determine the specific dates or locations for all of them. To the extent Representative Gaetz paid money to women in connection with those trips, at least some of the transactions are reflected in the chart discussed in the prior section. One of the women that Greenberg met on seekingarrangement.com and introduced to Representative Gaetz in or about March 2017 became Representative Gaetz's girlfriend when he was almost 35 and she was 21. Well, that sounds fine. The relationship continued for over 2 years. Good for him. So it was an arrangement that lasted longer. Hey, that's good, ma'am. That's fine. The relationship was not exclusive, and the committee received evidence that Representative Gaetz' then girlfriend sometimes participated with him in sexual encounters with other women who were active on the website or otherwise involved in sex for money arrangements. The committee also obtained text messages for when she appeared to act as an intermediary between Representative Gaetz and the women he paid for sex. So she was bottom bitch, I believe, as Butters would say. She herself was paid tens of thousands of dollars by Representative Gaetz over the course of their 2-year relationship. She stated, Matt always will pay for anything for me. However, she invoked her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination in response to several questions, as one should. Always invoke your rights, ma'am. Including what the purpose for specific payments was, whether Representative Gaetz ever paid for money for sex, and whether she was aware of Representative Gaetz paying for others for sex. She also invoked her Fifth Amendment privilege when asked to explain an increase in payments from Representative Gaetz in 2019, where any of the payments from Representative Gaetz were related to drugs, and whether payments she received from Mr. Greenberg were related to Representative Gaetz. The committee obtained messages between Mr. Greenberg and a 20-year-old woman he had met through seeking arrangements, which noted, "I usually do $400 per meet." Is that a good price? Is that a good price, $400 for a lay? Is that the going rate? I mean, it's not like I've been looking into it. I mean, you know, what is the market? What is the market right now on an encounter with a prostitution? Is $400 a good price? Inflation? Fair. As shown in the following exchange, $400 doesn't go as far as it used to. That's fair. The committee found the language used by the women and proposed amounts was consistent with the typical pay-per-meet arrangement of users on Seek arrangement at that time. Nice. Okay, so here's some messages. Messages between Joel Greenberg and a 20-year-old female. If you have a friend that's down, perhaps all four of us can come meet up later. Do you party at all? Oh, that's perfect. I have a friend who introduced me to the website that I could bring. She's very pretty, great personality. Usually I do $400 per meet. Does your friend use the website also? And yes, I do like to go out sometimes. Very cool. Yes, he understands the deal. What does your friend look like? $400 is not a problem. Are you both old enough to drink? So what do you have in mind for tonight? A picture of Matt Gaetz, my friend. Ooh, my friend thinks he's very cute. Well, he's down here for only a few days. We work hard and play hard. Have you ever tried Molly? And I can't seem to find Molly. Molly, 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 Molly. Look around through the club. Molly, Molly. In 2018, so the price in 2018 was $400. Evidence reviewed by the committee shows that on several occasions, Representative Gaetz met with other women who correspond with Mr. Greenberg's in these messages. He continues to follow her on social media and has paid her more than $2,000 since late 2018. The committee received evidence indicating that the 20-year-old woman in the above messages joined Mr. Greenberg and Representative Gaetz at his hotel in Florida less than 2 weeks after their initial encounter with Representative Gaetz. The committee records indicates that Representative Gaetz also invited another woman with whom he regularly paid for sex to meet him at the hotel without disclosing to her that others would be present. The other woman, who was 21 years old, had recently asked the congressman for help with her tuition. She recalled that Representative Gaetz agreed and told her to meet with him at the hotel room, where he would provide her a check, which according to the woman was interesting because normally he had sent Venmo. When she arrived to pick up the check, she found Greenberg and a 20-year-old woman present. The 21-year-old woman told the committee that there was an expectation of a sexual encounter. The four of them had sex, and afterwards, Representative Gaetz gave her a $750 check made out to cash with tuition reimbursement in the memo line, which he deposited the next day to help pay tuition. Nice. The 21-year-old woman told the committee she believed the encounter could be potentially a form of coercion because I really needed the money. Representative Gaetz's financial records confirm he wrote the check and he was present at the hotel identified by the woman on the date by the woman. Again, guys, I don't know why we need to have a call girl, 101 session with your friend Uncivil, but apparently that's what we need to do right now. Call girl caution 101 between you and Uncivil. Perhaps pay by cash. maybe not as much with the check or even really Venmo, because, there's like a recording of that transaction. Maybe cash would be better. Cash is king. You might even get a cash discount from your friendly neighborhood hooker. Yeah, okay. So that's been Call Girl Caution 101 with uncivil law. I'm happy to help. However, oh my God. However, if you pay by credit card, you could then refuse to pay the bill on the basis that the amount due is invalid because the amount was for prostitution, and any contract for an illegal service is void. This has been your one weird trick to get out paying your credit card bills. Your credit card companies hate it. As another example, the committee obtained text messages that appear to show Representative Gaetz messaging a woman he knew through Miss Greenberg, inviting her to travel on a private plane to Key West from May 19th to 23rd to 2017 with 2 guys, 4 girls, a very high quality, adventurous group. She initially responded, "Yeah, I'm in," to which Representative Gaetz stated, "Fantastic. As is true with all the time you spend with me, it'll be fun and very chill." The same woman was photographed with Representative Gaetz on May the 19th of 2017 in Orlando. The photograph depicts Representative Gaetz in a casual search with his arm around her in a dimly lit bar. He was also photographed in front of a helicopter with 3 other women associated with Representative Gaetz around the same time, including his then girlfriend. After the committee obtained copies of the text messages and selfie photo, there was public reporting about the evidence. In response to the reporting, Representative Gaetz' spokesperson released a statement asserting that Representative Gaetz does not know anything about the women you're referencing, though he takes thousands of selfies a year. Payment records reviewed by the committee, however, shows that Representative Gaetz paid $600 to the woman the same day he was photographed with her. In February 2018, Mr. Greenberg introduced Representative Gaetz to 2 women with accounts on seekingarrangement.com. They were generally older than other women that Mr. Greenberg had previously introduced to Representative Gaetz, and they had slightly different relationship with the 2 men. They were the only women paid for by Gaetz who denied to the committee the payments they received from the congressman were compensation for sexual activity. One of the women, who was 25 years old when she met with Gaetz, testified that she understood herself to be more sophisticated than some other women on seekingarrangement.com. "I'm not like all the other girls." That's always a really good sign. "I'm not like all the other girls whoring myself out." Interesting. In connection with women who almost exclusively interacted with Representative Gaetz in hotel rooms or at private parties, this woman attended events as Representative Gaetz' date, for which she was paid between $500 and $1,000 per event. So literally an escort. She also stated that she did not feel pressure to have sex with Gaetz and only did so on some occasions. She told the committee that in December 2019, Representative Gaetz had his congressional assistant arrange travel for her to Washington, D.C. for one night. According to the woman, she attended a dinner with Representative Gaetz and a few other individuals. She stayed overnight at a hotel with Representative Gaetz and had sex with him. Representative Gaetz sent the woman $1,000. The woman told the committee that she was paid this to be his date and the sex was not necessarily an expectation. That sounds a lot like what an escort would say. All right? That's why being an escort is legal. It is legal to be an escort. I mean, it's perfectly legal to accept money to go with someone in order to attend a social function. That's perfectly 100% legal. And, that's all anyone is interested in. The other woman, who was 27 years old when she met Representative Gaetz, was the only woman interviewed by the committee who did not view their relationship as transactional. The first time she met Gaetz, however, she had sex with him and was paid $1,000 by Greenberg, which she understood to have been at Representative Gaetz's direction. She told the committee she viewed her relationship with Gaetz as more or less dating, although it was never less serious. She was not familiar with his then girlfriend, and she says she was not aware that he was also having sexual relationships with her friend, a 25-year-old woman. She frequently commented on social media, and he still follows her on social media. Nice. Most of the sex for money encounters that the committee reviewed occurred in Florida, particularly around Orlando. Several of the women involved were students based in the area. On several occasions, however, Representative Gaetz did travel with women that he paid for sex. On September the 13th of 2018, Representative Gaetz, 2 other men, and 6 women traveled to the Bahamas. Representative Gaetz arrived by commercial plane later than the others, who arrived on private planes. No private jet for Gaetz. How sad. The group stayed at a vacation rental booked and paid for by one of the male travelers. The attendees stated that this was a social trip. They sunbathed, chartered a boat, and went to diners and to a casino as a group. Representative Gaetz engaged in sexual activity with at least 4 of the women on the trip. Several of the women recalled that Representative Gaetz appeared to be under the influence of drugs, and they took ecstasy during the trip. One woman said she witnessed Representative Gaetz taking ecstasy as well. I mean, he knows how to party. He knows how to let loose. I mean, Most, if not all, the women had been involved in some sexual history or sexual interactions with Representative Gaetz for which they had been paid. While no specific payments to women in connection with the Bahamas trip, according to one woman, the trip itself was more so the payment. The group returned to Orlando on September 16th of 2018. Representative Gaetz flew on a private plane with another man and 3 women, while the remaining individuals flew on another private plane. Representative Gaetz paid for 2 women to travel to New York City in January 2019 to meet up with him and his then girlfriend. The committee reviewed text messages in which Representative Gaetz asked the women about obtaining drugs in advance of the trip, stating, "Who can help with party favors?" In addition to paying for travel costs, the committee received evidence that Representative Gaetz sent the women money to compensate them for sexual activities that he engaged with them on the trip. While all the women that the committee interviewed stated that sexual activity with Representative Gaetz was consensual, at least one woman felt the use of drugs at the parties and events they attended may have impaired their ability to really know what's going on and fully consent. Oh my God. There were drugs at the party with the hookers. I'm sure it's the first time this woman has ever done drugs before. It impaired her ability to understand what was going on. Thank you, Tina P., for being a member for 12 months. Indeed, nearly every woman that the committee spoke with could not remember any details of at least one or more of the events they attended with Gaetz and attributed that to drug or alcohol consumption, I'm sure. The women also discussed instances where Representative Gaetz would try to convince them to have sex with him or Greenberg. He would make me feel bad about not having sex with him or Greenberg. And they would say, "Why don't you want to have sex with me?" Or, "Mr. Greenberg looks very sad over there. Make him happy." Uncivil looks very sad over here. "In the arms of angels, far away from me." For only $400, you can help an Uncivil. "From this hotel, this room in the earth is this that we fear." Please make your donation today. Another woman stated their relationship at some point was like a loving friendship, but over time it came to feel like a task. A third woman said, when I look back on certain moments, I feel violated. Can you pay with a card? Yes, you can. One woman said, I think about it all the time. I still see it when I turned on the TV and there's nothing anyone can do. It's frustrating to know I lived in a reality that he denies. Numerous witnesses told the committee that on July the 15th of 2017, Representative Gaetz attended a party at Mr. Dorwith's home. This party was also attended by Mr. Greenberg, Representative Gaetz's then girlfriend, and several others, including victim A, who was 17 years old at the time. The record overwhelmingly suggests that Gaetz had sex with multiple women at the party, including the then 17-year-old, for which they were paid. This is 2017, so depending on Florida law, that could be outside the statute of limitations at this point. I'd have to double check Florida law on that issue. Mr. Dorwith testified that Representative Gaetz was a frequent guest at his home. To enter the community which Dorwith lives, non-representatives or residents are required to present a driver's license before entering, and entry records are maintained. Mr. Dorwith believes that Representative Gaetz invited people to his home on the evening of July the 15th of 2017. Likewise, Representative Gaetz' then girlfriend provided an affidavit in civil litigation stating she and Representative Gaetz attended the July 15, 2017 party at the Dorwith residence. The committee received testimony that victim A and Representative Gaetz had sex twice during the party, including at least once in the presence of other party attendees. Victim A recalled receiving $400 in cash from Representative Gaetz that evening, which she understood to be payment for sex. At that time, she had just completed her junior year of high school. Victim A said that she did not inform Representative Gaetz she was under 18 at the time, nor did he ask her age. The committee did not receive any evidence indicating Representative Gaetz was aware that victim A was a minor when he had sex with her. Victim A acknowledged she was under the influence of ecstasy during her sexual encounters with Gaetz at the July 15, 2017 party, and recalled seeing Representative Gaetz use cocaine at that party. Victim A told the committee that she was certain of sexual encounters with Gaetz on the night. As discussed below, Representative Gaetz generally denies engaging in sexual activity with a minor, but refused to answer specific questions regarding his interactions with victim A. Isn't 17 legal in Florida? Not if you're over 24, no. As discussed before, not if you're over 24, no. Which is an interesting law, but, be that as it may. On August the 2nd of 2024, Representative Gaetz sent the committee a copy of his social media post from Mr. Dorwith regarding his lawsuit against victim A, in which he accused her of being part of a conspiracy to defame him. In that post, Mr. Dorwith discussed his recent settlement with victim A, in which no funds were exchanged. He asserted that he has succeeded in providing that victim A lied about him, and she just didn't lie about me. She lied about Gaetz as well in a federal criminal investigation that resulted in no charges against the congressman because our false accuser has no credibility and no evidence for the crime that occurred. The same day, Mr. Dorwith revised his post after victim A's attorneys contacted his attorneys to remove the claim that he succeeded in proving victim A had lied, but maintaining his assertion that she falsely accused Gaetz. Mr. Dorwith testified to the committee that he himself was not present for July 15, 2017 party at his own home, despite victim A's assertions to the contrary. After the committee's interview and after she settled his lawsuit against victim A, Mr. Dorwith was deposed and confronted with cell phone records showing that he was in fact in residence at the party. Mr. Dorwith said, I do not have an answer to these questions, and I'm not going to opine about cell phone data when I know nothing about it. I don't know. I don't believe I was there. There could be a million reasons for that. As the questions about the cell phone power taking from the tower less than a mile away continued, Mr. Dorwith became irritated, informing his attorney, I tell you I was not that party. So if you believe these phone records somehow impute that, or that they just make it undeniable, then that's certainly your belief. The committee requested through counsel that Mr. Dorwith clarified his committee regarding his whereabouts on July 15th. Counsel did not respond. Don't talk to the police or Congress or literally anyone else. Just don't talk to the police. Representative Gaetz categorically stated to the committee that allegations that he may have engaged in sexual misconduct, including violations of federal law relating to sex trafficking and federal laws relating to prostitution and statutory rape, were false. And these allegations were investigated by the Department of Justice, and the investigation was dropped. I am really loving the capacitive mute button on this Wave XLR. I just changed my interface from the Rode Solo, and I cannot tell you how much I love this capacitive mute button. It makes my life so much easier and so much better. It's great. I'm a very happy person. It also sounds great, which is nice. We haven't had many audio problems since we switched the interfaces, so that's all nice. So it was worth the $120 or whatever it is I paid for it, I guess. The committee provided Representative Gaetz with the name of 15 women who were alleged to have received payments from him or on his behalf relating to sexual misconduct and illicit drug use, as well as the approximate payment amounts and transaction years, but didn't provide any explanation for those payments. Representative Gaetz responded publicly to allegations that his payments to women for sex by stating that someone is trying to recategorize my generosity to ex-girlfriends as something more untoward. He repeatedly denied ever having paid for sex. When given the opportunity to put that assertion in writing in this matter, however, Representative Gaetz refused to respond, asserting that asking him about his sexual history as a single man with adult women is a bridge too far. Representative Gaetz did broadly address the allegations that he engaged in sexual activity with a minor. He asserted in his September 26, 2024 letter to the committee, "Your correspondence of September 4 asked whether I have ever engaged in sexual activity with any individual under the age of 18. The answer to this question is unequivocally no. You can apply this response to every version of the question in every form." The committee's September 4 letter, however, specifically asked him whether he was present at the January 15, 2017 party, and Mr. Dorwes, whether he ever engaged in sexual activity with victim A, and whether he ever gave victim A money directly or indirectly, and if so, for what purpose. Representative Gaetz did not answer any of these questions. Don't answer questions, they're bad. In 2011, news reports reported to federal investigators that were reviewing the 2018 Bahamas trip. According to these trips, the trip was paid for by an associate of Representative Gaetz with connections to the medical marijuana industry, who allegedly also paid for female escorts to accompany them on the trip. The medical marijuana industry apparently knows how to party. The only other male attendee who also attended connected to the medical marijuana industry. The only other male attendee was connected. According to the press reports, DOJ was investigating allegations the trip may have been used as part of an illegal influence effort on part of the medical marijuana industry. Nice. As discussed above, the Bahamas trip took place from September 13th to 16th of 2018 and included Representative Gaetz, 2 other men, and 6 women. Representative Gaetz flew on a commercial airline from Washington, D.C. to the Bahamas on September 13th. Representative Gaetz' associate paid for a vacation rental for the group, but told the committee that Representative Gaetz paid for various expenses in the Bahamas, such as meals, and these expenses covered by Gaetz' share of the vacation rental. No other individuals recalled whether Gaetz paid for meals, vacation rental, or other activities on the trip, with the exception of his then girlfriend. No one recalled Representative Gaetz making cash payments, and his bank statements and credit cards do not show any transactions on these trips occurring in the Bahamas, no large withdrawals of cash during or in advance of the trip. On September 16th of 2018, Representative Gaetz flew in his associate's private plane from the Bahamas to Orlando, along with 3 female passengers between 20 and 29. I mean, I just don't, again, it just strikes me as a very odd. It's like, look, there are gift giving rules. There are monetary rules on like gifts and stuff, but like it just is a weird place to put it, to my mind. It's like you go all through this very, prurient sexual conduct, sexual deviant conduct. And by the way, he took a trip that was a gift to the Bahamas. It's a very weird flow. It's like, that's a bit jarring to me. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things doesn't belong. Oh, and then it gets even worse. This might be maximum stupid. This might be the maximum stupid. I mean, we've gone from, okay, he engaged in prostitution and drugs, and he transported people for the purpose of the sex with the drugs, including underage girls. Okay, that was category A. To category B, he took a trip for the Bahamas paid for by the medical marijuana industry. To category C, he helped a non-constituent once. What the fuck? What? He helped a non-constituent once. What the fuck are we talking about at this point? Like, who cares? Who the fuck cares? As described above, in early 2018, Representative Gaetz met a woman through Mr. Greenberg. The same night they met, they had sex, and Greenberg sent her money. At that first meeting, the woman also told Gaetz she needed a new passport for her upcoming trip. She did not initially know that Gaetz was a congressman, but he connected her with his then chief of staff, who worked with the State Department's congressional liaison to secure a passport appointment for the woman within days of the meeting. Oh my God. He helped the woman expedite her passport. Holy shit. Is there no shame? An individual from the Department of State Miami Passport Agency sent the chief of staff an email confirming an appointment for your constituent, which the chief of staff then forwarded to the woman who lived in Orlando, which is outside of Gaetz's district. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Oh my God, she lived out of Gaetz's district, and he helped a non-constituent expedite her passport. Is there no shame? What the fuck are you talking about? Who cares? Who cares? I will share a Strom Thurmond story. Strom Thurmond was one of the longest serving senators of all time from the great state of South Carolina. And Strom Thurmond was notorious for his constituent service. He was very, very good at that. And I will share a Strom Thurmond story. Strom Thurmond also graduated from Clemson. Go Tigers. So I'm partial to him for that reason. Strom Thurmond also, by the way, holds the distinction of being the only successful write-in candidate for Senate. So there's a little factoid for your trivia if you ever need it. Who successfully got a write-in for Senate? Strom Thurmond. Anyways, I'll tell you a Strom Thurmond story. There was a story of a woman who called the Department of State and said, like, I really need this passport. Like, I'm traveling in like 3 days, to Europe, and some sort of thing. Like, I need a passport, I need it issued, and I need it in 3 days, So she calls the Department of State, right? And so this, poor staffer at Department of State's like, we can't do that. We can't do it even on an expedited basis. There's just no way. We can't possibly do it. It's not going to happen, right? And so apparently the story was, the woman then hung up with the Department of State, called Strom Thurmond's office. And the next thing that happened, apparently, was the woman got a call back from that same staffer at Department of State. It's like, yeah, you remember me, the guy you were talking to at Department of State? Yeah, your passport's been approved by the Secretary of State. So apparently just jumped all the line, which of course Strom Thurmond was like, longest serving senator and all the rest of it. So yeah, apparently he called the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State called the staffer and was like, yeah, we're approving the thing. So that apparently happened, and I always enjoyed that story because Strom Thurmond could pull that kind of shit. He was a boss. Go Tigers. Anyways, this woman acknowledged to the committee that the money she received from Mr. Greensburg was sent on behalf of the Representative Gaetz, but denied the money was compensation for the sexual encounter. Instead, she said she received $1,000 received from Mr. Greenberg, who assisted her with transportation costs to go to the Miami passport office from Orlando. The woman spent $195 to obtain her new passport prior to the trip. The standard $60 fee for the in-person plus $135 for the airport for the passport. Okay, so she paid the cost of the passport. Exciting. She continued to meet up with Representative Gaetz on other occasions during which they engaged in sexual activity. The committee reviewed other records relating to the passport request. Why? Why are you looking into this passport thing? Why are you looking into Gaetz helped to grease the skids a little bit at Department of State? Why are you doing this? Who the fuck cares? She helped the woman get a passport a little bit faster. Who fucking cares? The committee reviewed other records relating to the passport assistant request from the Office of Representative Gaetz. It was unusual for the Chief of Staff to process requests for expedited passports from constituents. Those casework matters were typically handled by district staff. The committee also received evidence that Representative Gaetz tasked the Chief of Staff with assisting Greenberg on this occasion. The Chief of Staff was no longer the employee of the office at the time and did not respond to requests of the committee. Who fucking cares? Who fucking cares? He did someone a favor and got them a passport a little bit faster. Holy shit, who cares? But the woman didn't live in his district. On May the 23rd of 2023, the committee informed Representative Gaetz that it had reauthorized the investigation into several allegations, including sexual misconduct and illicit drug use, and sent Representative Gaetz a narrowly tailored request for information seeking specific documents relating to allegations squarely within the committee's jurisdiction, namely violations relating to the House gift rules or bribery and improper images on the House floor. The request for information also asks for any other information you believe to be relevant to the matter as a whole. In response, Representative Gaetz began sending letters to the chairman and ranking member asserting, among other things, the committee's request for a 2-week response time and signed declaration under oath, both of which are standard practice for the committee, were unreasonable, and instead he was being treated differently than other members of Congress. Representative Gaetz indicated that the committee's request was overly burdensome, as he would need to sort through 6 years' worth of records across various accounts. In the letters, he also began making demands of the committee in exchange for his good faith cooperation, while suggesting the committee was being weaponized against him for various changing reasons. Methamphetamine is Schedule 2. I'm telling you. Methamphetamine is Schedule 2. Dissident. Its name is Disoxin as a prescription. Disoxin. It's prescription meth. Methamphetamine is Schedule 2. It is available to treat ADHD, at least hypothetically, which is hilarious. But yeah, Disoxin. DEOSXYN, I believe is how it's spelled, if you want to look it up. It's brand name methamphetamine brought to you by Big Pharma. Ask your doctor if meth is right for you. The request for the information also asks for any other information you believe to be relevant to the matter as a whole. In response, Representative Gaetz began sending letters to the chairman and ranking member asserting, among other things, the committee's request. Okay, we read that part. The chairman and ranking member granted Representative Gaetz an extension through August the 11th of 2023 in response to requests for information and explained the committee's standard practice. Representative Gaetz missed the deadline and stated he would only produce documents in person at his district office. The chairman and ranking members responded again, giving an extension of time through September 20th, 2023 to reply with the request for information and reiterating the committee standard practices. Representative Gaetz again missed the deadline, only producing 3 pages that were not fully responsive to the request for information. Representative Gaetz again missed the deadline in response, Representative Gaetz produced his boarding pass and itinerary used for the 2018 Bahamas trip, while also stating that he paid for personally. However, the boarding passes and itinerary only show his flight to the Bahamas and not his return. As discussed above, Representative Gaetz flew out of the Bahamas via private plane. Representative Gaetz intentionally omitted information regarding his return transportation, indicating in later correspondence that because the committee's request was for documents relating to actual or planned travel to the Bahamas, he should not be expected to produce it from that location. Cute. When the committee noted that any documents involving his transportation to the Bahamas were clearly related to his travel at issue, his response made clear he was not willing to provide a good faith response. Does the committee also have interest in every dollar I spent in the Bahamas on food, refreshments, and other travel provisions such as sunscreen? I ask because your request is unclear, unrelated to House rules, and more than a bit nosy. I can represent the committee that no funds of mine were expended in the Bahamas for illicit drug use or sexual misconduct. Despite frequently suggesting he had insufficient opportunities to respond to allegations against him, Representative Gaetz sent more than a dozen letters to the chairman and ranking members throughout the committee's review. In addition to alleging the committee's process was being weaponized against him, Representative Gaetz repeatedly alleged the committee's members and staff were leaking information to the press, which they totally were, that the committee's nonpartisan staff were actually acting Democrats, or the committee was working on behalf of former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. He also demanded to know the source of the allegations against him and argued the committee's investigation should be closed because the DOJ had exonerated him. Yeah. On May the 20th of 2024, the committee requested Representative Gaetz provide additional availability for an interview to be conducted sometimes in the first 2 weeks of June. The interview would be an opportunity for Representative Gaetz to ask questions about and respond to allegations. In the letter, the committee appended a fulsome list. A fulsome list? A fulsome list. Is that the right use of that word, fulsome? Fulsome, complimentary, or flattering to an excessive degree, of a large size or quantity, generous or abundant. Abundant or copious. Okay, so an abundant list of allegations. I don't think I've ever heard the word used in that context before. Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting word choice. Where was I? A fulsome list of allegations involving Representative Gaetz to ensure his awareness of all allegations before the committee. On May 24th, 2024, Representative Gaetz responded to the committee's letter. He demanded the committee investigate leaks to the press prior to him submitting for an interview and argued incorrectly the committee could not subpoena his testimony unless it impaneled an investigative committee. He also referred to voluminous documentary evidence he produced to the committee that he claimed showed his innocence and categorically denied the allegations. On June the 17th of 2024, the committee informed Representative Gaetz that it would be both expanding and narrowing the scope of the investigation. We're both expanding and narrowing. That's nice. The letter also requested evidence that DOJ had exonerated him, which that wouldn't exist. That's not what the DOJ really does. Any records previously produced to the DOJ, and any documents he believed the committee should have already received, compromising the voluminous evidence he claims to have produced. Finally, the letter reiterated that the committee's request to Representative Gaetz to appear for a voluntary interview and reminded him, pursuant to Committee Rule 10A, it would consider whether to use compulsory process to obtain his testimony. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. 5. Anything you say, I say fifth. Go ahead and ask me a question. Is that true? Fifth. Do I want you to see this document? Fifth. Representative Gaetz responded on June the 24th, 2024, stating he would need additional time to review over 10,000 records he had previously submitted to DOJ. He also reiterated his request the committee provide him with confidential information about its investigative sources, as well as regarding any investigation or disclosures in the press. He then publicly called the committee's investigation frivolous and said it was obviously a fact that every single investigation into me ends in the same way, my exoneration. Representative Gaetz ultimately produced some additional documents to the committee through early September, although it's not clear how many of those documents have been produced by DOJ. The committee also invited Representative Gaetz to clarify its relevance to the records he produced, most of which do not appear to be responsive to the committee's request, to which he stated only that he's prioritizing the evidence that most clearly proved his innocence. Representative Gaetz also falsely stated in a letter to the committee, which he publicly shared on social media, $5 from Amber Ann. Merry Christmas. It's not $400, but hey, lol. Well, you're getting me part of the way there. With all I need is 80 people more like you. Amber Ann, thank you very much. I don't want presents around the Christmas tree. All I want for Christmas is you, baby. Okay. Representative Gaetz also falsely stated in a letter to the committee, which he publicly shared on public social media, that he voluntarily produced tens of thousands of records. To the contrary, Representative Gaetz provided only a couple hundred records, more than 90% of which was either irrelevant or publicly available. Despite multiple extensions from the committee to review and produce responsive records from the 10,000s he claimed he would review, Representative Gaetz ultimately declared he would no longer cooperate with the committee in a public letter. The committee also reviewed allegations that Representative Gaetz may have sought to tamper with witness testimony in connection with the investigation or the DOJ's investigation. DOJ refused to provide a copy of an audio recording in which Representative Gaetz discussed the DOJ's inquiry with one of the women he paid for sex. While the committee did not find documentary evidence that Representative Gaetz directly acted to prevent any women from testifying before DOJ or the committee, some women cited a fear of retaliation when declined to speak on the record with the committee. Findings. Okay, now we have findings. Now, again, before we do the findings, I will just kindly remind you that this is political, not legal. The points are made up and the rules don't matter. That isn't to say it isn't true. It is to say that Congress can kind of do whatever it wants because it's a political branch and it's investigating one of its own. And the House has the right to determine its own rules. Plus, the House is the sole judge of its own rules, which is nice, right? It's like not only do you have the right to determine your own rules, you also are the only body that can determine whether or not you violated your own rules. So the points are made up and the rules don't matter. So, you know, are these findings to which we should have any particular confidence? I mean, only as much confidence, I suppose, as you have in either the people that authored it or the committee or the House as a whole. And given, you know, public approval ratings, probably not that much. So is it true? Could be. But it's not under any particular burden or proof of evidence or anything. It's whatever they think based on whims and wishes. All right, so here's what we've found. The committee found Representative Gaetz violated state laws relating to sexual misconduct. Well, I mean, not to find a point on it, but the Congress can't really make a determination as to a state, but that's okay. Who's going to stop them, right? The committee did not obtain substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz violated federal sex trafficking law. Transportation of an individual for the purpose of commercial sex could violate the law if the individual was a minor or the sexual activity occurred through force, fraud, or coercion. Representative Gaetz was allegedly in was alleged in news reports to have paid a minor to engage in sexual activity and travel with him on a trip to the Bahamas in September 2018. However, the youngest person to travel with him and his associates was 18 at the time of the trip. Further, she and other women who attended the Bahamas trip did not recall being paid for sexual activity on that occasion. One woman testified she was not paid for sex on the trip, although she did have sex with Gaetz because the trip itself was the payment. Yeah, there's also exhibits, and we can evaluate the exhibits, and we'll kind of skim through them. I'm just saying that, well, never mind. It's fine. Yes, there are exhibits, but again, there are no rules of evidence really. So is this evidence that would be available in a courtroom? You can't necessarily even conclude that. Is this everything? Is it part of the picture? Is it the whole picture? Is it only evidence that they believe leads to the conclusion? Is it other evidence? What is it? It's so it's evidence, sort of, kind of, maybe. As discussed above, there's evidence that Gaetz paid for women to travel to New York and DC for commercial sex. At the time, each of the women was over 18. While Representative Gaetz' relationship with these women involved an exploitative power imbalance, ooh, very exciting, the committee does not have reason to believe he used force, fraud, or coercion, as those terms are under applicable law. Exploitative power imbalance, very exciting. There's substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz paid for women for sex and had others pay for women for sex on his behalf. The committee heard testimony from over half a dozen witnesses who attended parties, events, and trips with Representative Gaetz from 2017 to 2020. Nearly every young woman that the committee interviewed confirmed that she was paid for sex by or on behalf of Representative Gaetz. A few of the women characterized the relationship differently, describing a date-for-hire relationship that may not necessarily implicate state prostitution laws. Even assuming the payments to those particular women would not violate prostitution laws, the committee found that Representative Gaetz spent tens of thousands of dollars on other women with whom he had a shared understanding that they'd be compensated for sexual activity with him. There was potential additional amounts spent on commercial sex that could not be specifically identified, either because the payments were made in cash or through intermediaries. The committee's records thus indicate that Representative Gaetz enticed and procured women. Procured women. I don't know. I don't like that phrase, procured woman. I mean, it sounds very demeaning to the women, to me personally. Procured women? I don't know, man. To engage in sexual activity for hire and purchase the services of women engaging in sexual activity for hire in violation of state law. Representative Gaetz refused to answer the committee's questions about his payments to women, despite opportunities to do so in sworn testimony or in writing. While he has been unwilling to address the allegations under oath, Representative Gaetz has made several public statements regarding the allegations under the committee's review, including that his generosity to his ex-girlfriends is being misconstrued and that he never ever paid for sex. The committee finds this to be untrue. Members are required to uphold the laws of the United States and all governments therein, and never be a party to their evasion. Through his violations of state prostitution laws, Representative Gaetz acted contrary to ethics. Okay. Representative Gaetz took advantage of the economic vulnerability of young women to lure them into sexual activity for which they received an average of a few $100s after each encounter. I don't like that argument either. It's like there is something very wrong with being a prostitute and then saying, I'm exploited. I did it because I was desperate for the money. That's look, you can't that's just wrong, right? I mean, look, you want the money. We all want money. I want money. Please give me money. I may or may not prostitute myself for you if you give me money. But I mean, we all want money, but it's like, I did it because I was young and vulnerable and poor. It's like, no, you're a whore, woman. Own up to it. You're a big girl. You're a big girl. Be responsible for your decisions. It's the lack of accountability, I think. Let's see, where were we? Such behavior is not generosity to ex-girlfriends, and it does not reflect credibility upon the House. The committee thus found Representative Gaetz to be in violation of House Rule 23, Clause 1. There is substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz engaged in sexual activity with a 17-year-old girl. The committee received credible testimony from victim A herself, as well as multiple individuals corroborating the allegation. Several of those witnesses have also testified under oath before a federal grand jury and in civil litigation. Representative Gaetz denied the allegation but refuses to testify under oath. Why would you? He's since publicly stated that victim A doesn't exist and that he has not had sex with a 17-year-old since he was 17. The committee found that to be untrue and determined that there's substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz had sex with victim A in July 2017 when she was 17 years old and he was 35. Representative Gaetz' actions were in violation of Florida's statutory rape law. And then there's a footnote here. It says, while the statute of limitations to bring state charges against Gaetz has long passed, so that answers that question. So the statute of limitations for statutory rape has long since expired. That limitation is not applicable to the committee. I mean, I guess in so much as the rules are made up, so sure, they're not applicable, but yeah. Representative Gaetz has suggested the allegations against him have been manufactured and that Mr. Greenberg and victim A are not credible. The committee has acknowledged that Greenberg's credibility is in doubt. The committee received additional evidence from Greenberg that is not included in this report, much of it salacious but unverifiable, although consistent with the nature of the conduct the committee has learned of other witnesses. So we have secret evidence. That's nice. The committee has found no reason to doubt the credibility of victim A. Representative Gaetz has suggested the fact that she, along with her attorneys, expressed an intention to receive civil redress against him for raping her, means she has financial motive that undermines her veracity of the claims. The committee received a letter from victim A to counsel for Representative Gaetz, in which she stated intent to pursue claims against Representative Gaetz, including child sex trafficking and statutory rape. Regardless of whether victim A has any pecuniary motive in sending such communications, so regardless of whether or not she wants money, which sounds like a hell of a motive, she cooperated with the DOJ's investigation for years and was let down by the justice system when reports circulated that the DOJ would be unlikely to pursue charges. Well, again, the DOJ tends to be very small c conservative on such things. The DOJ tends not to do it unless they've got you cold. Victim A is entitled to all the prosecutions and remedies available under civil law, and her intention to pursue claims against Gaetz and others does not negate her credibility. I mean, it does a little bit. I mean, it certainly challenges it slightly. Moreover, as discussed above, the committees obtained testimony and documentary evidence from other witnesses corroborating the allegations. Representative Gaetz' statutory rape of victim A was a violation of Florida law, the Code of Official Conduct, and the Code of Ethics. The committee received evidence that Gaetz did not learn that victim A was 17 years old until more than a month after their first sexual encounter. However, statutory rape, at least in Florida, is a strict liability crime. So the lack of knowledge of the age is not a defense in Florida. It might be in some states. Check your local laws. After she learned that victim A was a minor, he maintained contact. And less than 6 months after she turned 18, she met up again for commercial sex. Well, then she's 18, so it's cool. When Greenberg was prosecuted for sexual trafficking of the same individual, Gaetz denied she existed. His conduct reflects discredibility upon the House. There is substantial evidence that Gaetz was using cocaine, ecstasy, and marijuana. Oh, heaven forbid, the devil's lettuce. Even more women understood him to be regularly using ecstasy. There's also ample evidence that Representative Gaetz purchased and used marijuana. He appears to set up a pseudonym email account from his house office for the purpose of purchasing marijuana. Representative Gaetz denied using illicit drugs in written correspondence. Members of Congress are not required to undergo the same background check process as other government officials who obtain a security clearance. That process includes answering questions about the use of illegal drugs in 7 preceding years. Representative Gaetz used illegal drugs on numerous occasions between 2017 and 2020 in violation of state law. The committee also received evidence that Gaetz and associates produced drugs to the women to facilitate their sexual misconduct. Let's see, where were we? Okay. I'll just skip to part C. There's substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz received impermissible gifts in connection with his travel to the Bahamas in 2018. Specifically, Representative Gaetz accepted travel via private plane and other travel costs. Thank you, by the way, for the 1,000 of you who are currently watching me. I do appreciate you spending some time with me. I hope you appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, if you would hit the subscribe button, assuming you haven't already, that'd be really nice. We have 143,000 subscribers, and I'd like to continue growing. And I try to bring you top quality legal content when I can. Or at least legal adjacent content, like we're doing today. And also, if you wouldn't mind hitting the beautiful, beautiful join button. It is only 99 cents a month to join. It's literally as cheap as YouTube will let me make it. So for 99 cents a month, you can become an uncivilian and join the channel. You get cool little icon by your name. You get your name in green. You get some emojis. You get some behind the scenes content, plus my love. And I would appreciate your help and support. It makes a huge difference. Thank you very much. If you throw a couple bucks in the tin, it would be appreciated. All right, let's see. Where were we? Thank you, Ann Bell Feinstein, for the 10 gift memberships. There's substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz received impermissible gifts in connection with his travel to the Bahamas in 2018. Specifically, Representative Gaetz accepted travel via private plane and other travel costs. Contrary to Gaetz' claim that he provides substantial evidence to the committee demonstrating his innocence, he's provided no evidence showing how much he paid for any travel costs other than his flight to the Bahamas, despite giving multiple opportunities to do so. As discussed above, Representative Gaetz' associate provided the lodging and return flight via private plane. Representative Gaetz accepted this gift without first seeking the approval of the committee. The gift rule requires the member to apply to the committee for waiver to accept gifts of personal friendship with a fair market value over the threshold amount. For travel via private plane, the committee has provided extensive guidance. Less than a year after Representative Gaetz' flight from the Bahamas, the committee circulated a reminder about the guidance to the House community, noting that practically any flight on a non-commercial aircraft will exceed $250 in value and hence require committee approval. The flight, lodging, meal, and entertainment expenses of the Bahama trip were incurred but not paid by Representative Gaetz, well in excess of their personal friendship threshold. The committee also found evidence that Gaetz impermissibly accepted private plane travel on other occasions. Gaetz failed to disclose the Bahama travel gifts, as well as other flights he's taken on his associates' private planes on his financial disclosure. Accordingly, the committee found that Representative Gaetz violated Rule 25, Clause 5 by accepting impermissible gifts. Consistent with the committee's longstanding precedent, Representative Gaetz would be required to repay the value of the gifts and amend his financial disclosures to disclose receipt of the gifts. The committee also found substantial evidence that Gaetz used the power of his office to assist. Are we going back to the passport thing? Really? That's what we're doing now? We're going back to the passport thing? Really? Guys, let it go. Let it go. The passport thing? Really? Let it go. The committee found substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz used his power of his office to assist a woman who he was engaged in sexual relationship in obtaining an expedited passport. The woman was not his constituent, and the case was not handled in the same manner as similar passport cases. Accordingly, the committee found Representative Gaetz violated House regulations and laws requiring the use of official resources for representative purposes, and paragraph 5, which prohibits the dispensing of special favors and privileges. Who the fuck cares? The committee found substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz engaged in obstructive conduct with respect to the committee's investigation. Representative Gaetz pointed to evidence that would exonerate him, yet failed to produce the materials. Weed is not legal federally. Which is very annoying, but it's not. Thank you, Broly BP, $1.99. Meanwhile, sitting dementia present pardons creeps. Fair. Including the cash for kids judge they pardoned, or at least commuted the sentence. That was pretty fucked up, in my opinion. Representative Gaetz continuously sought to deflect, deter, or mislead the committee in order to prevent his actions from being exposed. This was most notable with respect to the committee's specific request regarding the Bahamas trip. As discussed above, Representative Gaetz intentionally withheld information relating to his return trip via private plane. Representative Gaetz clearly understood he had acted contrary to House rules by accepting private plane travel, but chose to cover up his actions rather than comply with the committee's request. Despite asserting he wanted an opportunity to address the allegations against him, Representative Gaetz declined to provide testimony voluntarily and did not appear when subpoenaed. Representative Gaetz was also provided ample time to review and produce documents requested at various points in the committee's investigation. He only produced a handful of non-public documents to the committee. These documents were largely irrelevant, corresponding to time periods after most of the relevant conduct had occurred. Likewise, Representative Gaetz informed the committee that he would welcome the opportunity to respond to written questions, and then the committee set a list of 16 questions. After requesting an extension to respond to the written questions, which was granted, it appears that Representative Gaetz used that time to craft a public letter, mischaracterizing the committee's request and asserting he would no longer voluntarily cooperate, despite his uncooperative approach throughout the review. His actions undermine not only his claims that he had exculpatory evidence to provide, but also his claims that he intended to cooperate with the government in good faith. It's apparent that Representative Gaetz's actions or assertions were nothing more than attempts to delay the committee's investigation. Representative Gaetz routinely ignored or delayed significantly producing relevant information to the committee. His failure to respond to the committee to issue subpoenas to financial institutions for Representative Gaetz' financial records related to alleged transactions. Those records show that Representative Gaetz bought and sold stocks and cryptocurrencies from a trading account he opened in March 2021. Some of the trades were below the $1,000 reporting threshold, but others were not. Representative Gaetz not only failed to file the required periodic transaction reports, but also failed to disclose the transactions in his annual financial disclosure statement. The committee's longstanding practice is not to take enforcement action when a failure to file required disclosures is inadvertent, but because of his lack of cooperation, the committee was unable to determine the reason the transactions were not disclosed. The committee reminded Representative Gaetz of his duty of diligence and candor to the committee. Representative Gaetz' response was to suggest the committee had a duty of candor to him and must reveal the confidential sources supporting the allegations against him. The committee rules prevent the disclosure. Moreover, the committee has serious concerns that Representative Gaetz might retaliate against individuals who cooperate with the committee. Again, no right of confrontation. Right? No right of confrontation. It's Congress. It's not a courtroom. Do you have the right to know the witnesses against you? Nope. Do you have a right to know who they are? Nope. The rules are made up and the points don't matter, people. In 2020, the committee admonished Representative Gaetz for his conduct towards a witness in congressional proceeding, finding he acted in violation of the official code of conduct for a public statement that was perceived as some by a threat to a witness. In that matter, the committee did not find sufficient evidence to conclude Representative Gaetz had the requisite criminal intent and noted that he had expressed regret for his conduct. In contrast, in the current matter, there's sufficient evidence of Representative Gaetz' intent to derail the investigation. The committee determined that Representative Gaetz' attempt to mislead and deter the committee from investigating him implicated federal criminal laws relating to false statements. Even if Representative Gaetz' obstructive conduct in this investigation did not rise to the level of criminal violation, it was certainly inconsistent with the requirement that the members act in a manner that reflects credibility upon the House in violation of Rule 23, Clause 1. Based upon the above, the committee determines there's substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz violated House rules and other standards of conduct prohibiting prostitution, statutory rape, illicit drug use, impermissible gifts, special favors or privileges, and obstruction of Congress. And the committee makes no special oversight findings, and no budget statement is submitted, and no funding is authorized. And thus, that is the statement. And then there is a brief dissenting statement. It's not very long, but we'll read it. This is the view of Chairman Michael Guest on behalf of the dissent members. So it's written on their behalf, I guess. I write on behalf of members of the committee who do not support the release of this report regarding former Representative Matt Gaetz. We believe and remain steadfast in the position the House Committee on Ethics lost jurisdiction to release to the public any substantive work product regarding Matt Gaetz after his resignation from the House on November the 14th of 2024. While we do not challenge the committee's findings, we take great exception the majority deviated from the committee's well-established standards and voted to release a report on an individual no longer under the committee's jurisdiction, and act the committee has not taken since 2006. House rules give the committee jurisdiction over current members, officers, and employees of the House. Consistent with these rules, when a member who's under investigation by the committee leaves the House, the committee standards practice is to close the investigation and make no further statement of findings. We do not believe the rules authorize the committee to continue to expand its jurisdiction as it sees fit. But then again, the rules are made up and the points don't matter, right? So does it violate the rules? Ask the House, right? Any precedent to the contrary is extremely rare, inconsistent with the rules, and outweighed by a vast majority of matters, too numerous to list, to which the committee took no material action after losing jurisdiction. Representative Gaetz resigned from Congress, withdrew from consideration to serve in the next administration, and declared he would not seek to be seated in the 119th Congress, but he could change his mind. The decision to publish the report and he could change his mind for a later Congress if he were so inclined. The decision to publish a report after his resignation breaks from the committee's long-standing practice, opens the committee up to undue criticism, and will be viewed by some as an attempt to weaponize the committee progress. We believe that operating outside the jurisdictional bounds set forth by the House rules and committee standards, especially when making public disclosures, is a dangerous departure with potentially catastrophic consequences. Finally, we join the views of the committee as expressed in December 23rd, 2024, a public statement addressing the significant unusual amount of public reporting on the committee's review of the matter. As expressed by the committee, to the extent that any of the public reporting on this matter comes from unauthorized disclosures of confidential committee information, we strongly condemn such unauthorized disclosure, which are damaging and harmful to the committee's work. All right, and now we will briefly go through some of the evidence. It's a lot of it. Like Appendix A is 182 pages, and I'm not going to read this all verbatim, but we'll see if there's anything in here that requires our particular attention. So we'll skim. So these are like letters going back and forth saying like, you know, so these are the letters going back and forth. This is what the committee wants. No, they're not going to give you that, you know, whatever. So a random tweet. Random article from CNN in the Record. Blah, 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 blah. More letters back and forth, yelling at each other. Even more letters yelling back and forth, yelling at each other. Here is apparently that flight from Washington, Nassau that we referred to earlier on American Airlines, getting to Nassau. Exciting. Here is their boarding pass. I'm not sure why we need a copy of their boarding pass, but okay. More letters back and forth. And we're still scrolling. Letters back and forth. Okay, so here is something from the Federal Election Commission. Decided by a vote to 5-0, find no reason to believe that friends of Matt Gaetz and Stephen Martin as treasurer and Matt Gaetz violated the law by converting campaign funds to personal use. So the FEC found no problem with the election, with the money issue. So the FEC was like, we don't find a problem with it. Blah, blah, blah. These are more donation records, more tweets, more articles from CNN for some reason, more flight. We've seen this stuff. More emails, more letters, going back and forth and yelling at each other, more flight information. There's the payments that we alleged amounts of the payments. More articles, more articles. A letter, I think, from Matt Gaetz denying things. This is just letters back and forth. Oh, okay. Here's a text message. Any updates on the calendar? It's to export the calendar items currently. Waiting for it to finish. Thank you. So the export doesn't have nearly as much evidence as the initial spreadsheets I sent. So less than the initial? Yes, less than the first one. I'm going to try again. Thank you. Any luck? We noticed the same glitch on calendar 2019, not downloading all the events that's happening to all our other years, 2018, 2022. Can we make sure to double check them all once we figure out the solution? I see a filter was enabled. We'd have to download them again. Exciting. That was definitely a thing I was happy to read. Here's a statement relating to investigators of Matt Gaetz. This is an interview of Greenberg. That's exciting. Handwritten letters. More email, more articles from CNN. More listing of articles. Just a listing of articles. Not going to provide all the articles, just provide listings to them. More listing of articles. And so, yeah, so this is just like a bunch of bullshit. All right, let's take a look at Exhibit B, Part 1. All right, so this is like actual evidence. All right, so here is like $1,600. This is Matt Gaetz' account. This is the deposit of a check. There's the actual check from Greenberg to Gaetz for $1,600, and the deposit slip, which we have a copy of, which is pretty funny. Okay, be here before 5 because that's when we leave. It'll be okay. I promise I'll make him be nice to you. Damn, he's being complicated. Talk to him tomorrow. I'll be easier in person. I love you. Then I sent you some. Then I sent you to others. Then I sent you more. So I'm not to be taken care of for last week. I gave you $250 today. I figured would pay for your Uber. Last week you gave me a drive-by. Not happy about the service quality received. Get some sleep, Kay. I'll be okay, I promise. Like I gave him a drive-by, I stayed longer. I'm really just over it. It's not fair for me to be unappreciated when I try. Yeah, I totally understand. Okay, I'm going to head to sleep. If you want to talk, I'll talk with you tomorrow. I don't care anymore. Sleep sweet. You too, boo. Planned the Turks and Caicos trip with him in March time, I think. Yay. Matt never paid me. How much he paid you? What the fuck? He gave me $400. Hopefully remembers I don't want to have to ask. Just don't say it to him on Friday. Okay. Like while you're giving him a BJ, ask. Ah ha 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 ha. Before you ask, have sex for sure. Okay, ugh. That's why I'm broke, because I was. They're having a party at Chris Dorwes. Yeah, I need like 800 for the first. Ha ha. Invited me. Who? I don't know him. Lol. Normal group. Ah, okay. He's friends with Matt and all of them, but ugh. I know, ugh. I hate the money situation and drugs. I don't want to roll. I'll talk to someone about it. Lol. Hey, Joel, I'm not trying to be that girl or anything, because I honestly really do appreciate your help. And thanks for sending what you did this morning. But I was under the impression you were sending more to me, especially since you asked how much my classes cost and said you'd take care of it. Like I was counting on more to come in, and I even missed one day of work because of the weekend. And I could have made what you sent me at my job instead of being there. Not saying I don't enjoy myself or have a good time, but I just don't want to be falsely led to believe you're sending me more than I actually receive. Like, just be consistent or let me know the amount before I come over and hang. Honestly, like, before I even come over to these events, I'd feel more comfortable if you sent to me when I'm on my way before I arrive, because you know I'll come. And that'll make me enjoy the times we have together even more, because I'll feel more safe. It's just I feel like I'm being a little cheated in the process and don't know if I'll continue to come around as much if I'm going to be let down is all. Just like if things were reversed, you probably don't want to continue to Venmo if I didn't come hang. Dear God, I just typed the longest fucking message. Oops. Honestly, I don't really care if he gets mad. Let me know what he says. He says he's waiting on Matt to send him more. Lol, that was the perfect message. And here are like various accounts from PayPal to various people for various amounts and various descriptions. Here again are some amounts for various things. Description: being my friend, being awesome, groceries, here, stuff, phone, cash, Uber plus hotel, a dress, $130 for fucking up contest rules, $500 for lease liberation, gift, relaxation, gift, groceries, happy Easter, we miss you, Easter bunny, groceries, no tuition, flight, dry clean, shoes for my favorite Uber driver, what looks like horses. So various payments to various people with various memo lines from various accounts, Venmo accounts, PayPal accounts, Cash App accounts. To various women or Joel Greenberg. And that's about it. Well, that, my friends, will bring us to the end of our coverage. So, yeah, I mean, you know, we have payments to women for what is questionable. Some of the women say it was for sexual favors. You know, so, you know, and then I guess it depends how much you care about all that, right? I mean, the DOJ isn't prosecuting. The statutory rape issue is gone by the statute of limitations. There's not enough evidence that these women were being coerced or duress. So there's not evidence to support that kind of charge. So what you sort of have is, I guess the evidence is you have evidence of prostitution, really, or at least evidence of a sugar relationship. You know, if not an out and out prostitution, so a sugar relationship from seeking.com. So, yeah. So that's, and you have multiple women on multiple days. And, Gaetz is probably, Gaetz probably is like, I never did pay for sex. And he's probably, strictly speaking, never did. At least in his own mind, right? Because it's like, I pay for things and then I hope sex is going to happen. So in his own mind, he probably never paid for sex, or it never at least was explicit, right? It was never explicitly like, I'm paying you for sex. Like, it was always, I'm giving you money, and then sex happens. Coincidentally. So, like, Gaetz probably believes it when he says he didn't pay for sex. Because, like, to his mind, he didn't. Right? He paid for women to spend time with him. And the women just happened to have sex with him. And if the women hadn't had sex with him, presumably he would spend less time with them. But then again, that might be said for any relationship, to be honest. Right? So, like, you run into problems when you're trying to differentiate these things, like what makes a prostitution relationship versus a normal relationship, right? If I wanted to be romantic with you and you weren't being romantic with me, I'd probably hang out with you less, right? There's an expectation we're going to be romantic. That's why we're spending time with each other. And, like, if I'm buying you lunch and buying you dinner or buying you a trip, it's because there's an expectation because I want a romantic relationship. So, like, how do you differentiate that from a prostitution relationship? Becomes a little bit tricky in sort of the technical aspect of it, because much the same behavior could be understood both ways. So, seriously? Yeah. I mean, there's trying to divide it out. It's like when you try to divide it out and try to separate it out, it's a bit of a tricky concept. You can't pay your wife to go away? Sure you can. You just give her half. You can absolutely pay your wife to go away. Yeah. Sounds ridiculous? Well, I mean, okay, all right, so what might a normal dating relationship look like? Like, a normal dating relationship might be, I buy you dinner. I buy you a coffee. I take us out to an event together. I buy us tickets for a theme park. I take us on vacation together. Like, there's an expenditure of money. And there's usually the expectation that you want sex to occur in the romantic relationship. And if it didn't occur, you probably wouldn't be expending the money. Right? Because it's like, well, what I want is not happening. I want a romantic relationship and that's not happening. So, like, okay, so that's a fairly typical romantic relationship, right? I'm expending money for us to do things to each other. I certainly hope sex is going to happen. And so if it doesn't happen, I'm probably not going to do those things because I'm not getting what I want out of it. So it's hard to separate that, and it's hard to separate that technically from the sort of it's hard to separate that technically from a escort relationship, because the only thing that's really changing is the motivation, not the action, or like what you fundamentally desire, I suppose, is changing. As opposed to, I fundamentally desire to spend time with you, I fundamentally desire the money. So the fundamental target, I suppose, changes, but the behavior is very similar. So it's like the thing I'm trying to acquire is different, but the behavior is very similar. So, yeah. And even in a marriage, like, there's, it's a tighter exchange, right? That's why marriages fall apart. It's one of the reasons marriages fall apart, right? It's like in a marriage, there's a reciprocity. And if you're not getting your reciprocity, then you might not stay married. So it's very hard to separate it technically, because the only thing that's separating it technically is I'm dating you because I want your money as opposed to I want to be with you. But then even then you have a problem, because some people are more attracted to wealth, right? Some people are more attracted to wealth. So the wealth is what makes them attractive to you. So now the wealth and the attraction are one and the same, and it's very hard to separate technically. Now, if you have an explicit money for sex, then you're into prostitution, right? So if it's explicit, I'll give you $400 to come over and sleep with me. Now you just have prostitution. So yeah, the explicit quid pro quo is the thing that makes the dividing line. I'm not equating dating to prostitution. I'm saying they're hard to separate technically. It's the same behavior, or it's very similar behavior, or it is in like in a sugar kind of relationship. It's like it's very hard to separate technically, because it's the same kind of behavior. It's the same kind of actions. The only thing that's sort of changing fundamentally is I'm doing it because I like being with you, as opposed to I'm doing it because I want to get money. But otherwise, like, it's very similar technically, right? So like, or it can from a purely objective frame be very technical, it's very similar technically. Right? It's like how do you separate it technically? Like, how do you separate it? Technically, if I take a woman out to dinner and a movie, and maybe we go to a theme park together, and then we have sex, is that dating or is that prostitution? And it's like, you can't really tell from the behavior. And like, so the only thing maybe that changes it maybe is her motive, as opposed to like what she's really after. It's like, it's very hard to separate technically because the behavior is very similar. That's one of the reasons that like the seeking relationships are legal. It's one of the reasons why the committee said it's very hard to say whether or not it's prostitution under state law. It's very hard to say it's prostitution. There's a reason like why sugar relationships are legal and prostitution is not. It's actually pretty hard to separate sugar relationships. It's like, it would be really hard to pass a law against sugar relationships. That'd be really, really hard. Because how do you do that technically? Right? It's like, how do you do that technically? So, and like, most relationships are motivated by self-interest to some degree. Like, I enjoy spending time with you. That's self-interest. There's like, it's like, yeah, most relationships are motivated by self-interest to at least some degree. It's like, I enjoy spending time with you. That makes me feel good. And it's like, there's self-interest in every relationship. There's, and most marriages, I mean, there's self-interest. Like you're getting a need fulfilled in most marriages, and if not, then that's why many marriages fall apart, because that need's not being fulfilled. So like, there's an expectation in every relation. There's an expectation in relationships that my needs are going to be fulfilled. That's one of the reasons you're in a relationship, is to get those needs fulfilled. It's one of the reasons I'm seeking a relationship, because I want those needs fulfilled. I have needs that I cannot provide on myself. That's one of the reasons I want to be in a relationship, to get those needs fulfilled, and hopefully provide her needs that she can't fulfill herself. That makes it mutually beneficial. But it's very hard to separate technically. And who was it who said there's no such thing as pure altruism? Was that Freud who said there's no such thing as pure altruism? That it was a famous psychologist. Was it Freud? It's like there's no such thing as pure altruism. It's impossible to be purely altruistic. It's impossible to commit a truly selfless act. There's no such thing as a purely selfless act. It's like that's probably true. Yeah. It's also tentative animal behavior, right? Like, yeah, it's also tentative for animal behavior. Like, people, it's very animalistic. Animals want their needs fulfilled. Yeah, they want their needs fulfilled. It's like they're seeking something in the relationship. Relationships are to fulfill a need. It's like, well, otherwise, why would I be in a relationship with you? Like, otherwise, why would I be with you if you didn't provide value to me and I provided value to you? If I'm not a value add and you're not a value add to me, why are we in a relationship together? It's like, if you're not providing me things, then why are we together? So it's like, it's very interesting technically. Anyways, that's enough of that. Yeah. I'd reconsider my thinking, and I mean no disrespect. Well, you're going to have to tell me if you want me to reconsider my thinking. You're going to have to like tell me your thinking. Like, you can't just ask me to reconsider my thinking in the abstract. That's not fair. Like, you have to tell me like what you're thinking, or you have to tell me like what part of this you think I'm getting wrong. Like, where am I making a mistake? And it could be that I'm not explaining it adequately. That's one of the reasons I've tried to rephrase it a couple times, because it could be I'm just not adequately explaining it. But like, you have to help me. It's like, why do you think you can't just say reconsider your thoughts? I'm like, based on what? Reconsider it based on what? It's like, okay, give me something to work from, and I'll be like, okay, I phrased that poorly, or I should phrase it this way, or I should, do it a different way. I could be wrong. Yeah. And as for what you think about Matt Gaetz about the whole thing, I think that's a little bit in the eye of the beholder. Like, so what you think about Matt Gaetz and what you think about him personally or ethically is sort of in the eye of the beholder. And I think on a personal level, you can have sort of whatever judgment you like about him. Like, I think that there's enough evidence to, there's certainly enough evidence to believe, if you want, that he engaged in prostitution. I think there's enough evidence to believe that conclusion. And so, like, then it just becomes an issue of what do you think about him as a result, and what do you think that means, and how should you feel about it, and how do you feel about the way he was treated by the committee, or not, or how do you feel about this report being released? So, there's a lot for you, the person, to think about it. But it's like, Matt Gaetz, the passport thing can bite my ass. That's what I think. The passport thing can absolutely bite my ass. The money for relationship things. It's like, well, it might have been legal. A lot of it might have been legal. Because a lot of it might have just been sugar relationships. So is it legal because it's sugar relationships, or is it prostitution? And how do you tell the difference for sure is very challenging. It's easy to draw the distinction. If the romance is strictly transactional for the purpose of sex, it's prostitution. Otherwise, everything else is dating to some degree. I'm not sure that definition really works, but fair enough. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off, because I've run out of things to say. But I'm going to send you somewhere because I'm a nice guy. Sugar relationships are more than sex alone, which is what I call dating. Yeah, I mean, if it's strictly just sex, then you're definitely closer to prostitution. If it's just sex, you're closer to prostitution. But when I think about the relationships I've been in, sex is not the most valuable thing. It's definitely something I value. It's essential, but it's not the most valuable thing. It's not the most valuable thing. At least that's been true of the relationships I've been in. So maybe that's the difference. Maybe if sex is not the most, maybe if sex is the most valuable thing, maybe it's an improper relationship. And maybe if sex is not the most important thing, then, or money. Maybe those are the things. Like if sex or money is the most important thing, maybe that's what makes the improper relationship. But if sex and money are not the most important things, maybe that's the proper relationship. Maybe that's the dividing line. If something other than sex and money are the most important aspects of the relationship, maybe that's the dividing line. Maybe that's the answer. Let's see. Is anyone streaming? No. How can no one be streaming? Oh, well. All right, I'm going to sign off for now. It's been fun. I will talk to you soon. I got to do my cardio. I'm going to go do my cardio so I can continue to lose weight. I'm going to have some of the chili I made. And then I'm going to do some cardio. And those will both be fun. Next trial coming up. I'm not sure when the next trial is coming up. But we will press on. And everyone out there, have a Merry Christmas. I hope all's well. Till later, my friends. Cheers for now and goodbye.